Sacrifice is the highest form of love. That's what Sister Marin whispered to Alara every night in the orphanage chapel, her weathered hands clasped in prayer. Give everything, expect nothing, and the moon goddess will smile upon you. But when Alara offered her throat at the moon trial, when she knelt in that sacred circle with her neck bared to save a child who wasn't even her own, she would learn that the moon goddess had a crueler sense of humor than any prayer book mentioned. Because the Alpha King didn't just reject her sacrifice, he claimed it. And in doing so, he marked her with a bond that would either destroy them both or reveal a conspiracy that had poisoned the werewolf kingdoms for generations. Some prayers are answered, others are punished. Alara's would become both. Chapter 1. The Unwanted Daughter. The Crescent Hollow orphanage smelled of lavender soap and broken dreams. Alara pressed her forehead against the cold window of the washing room, watching the village below prepare for tomorrow's moon trial. Lanterns blazed in every window. Silver banners rippled in the autumn wind. Families gathered in the square, their daughters dressed in ceremonial white, practicing the graceful bow required when presenting themselves to the Alpha King's court. Stop daydreaming and finish the sheets. Sister Marin's voice cut through the room like a blade wrapped in velvet. The children need clean bedding, or have you forgotten your purpose here? Alara turned from the window, her hands raw and red from the scalding wash water. I haven't forgotten, sister. Good. The elderly nun moved through the washing room with the rigid precision of someone who'd spent 60 years bending others to order. Her habit was immaculate, her face carved from years of disappointed prayers. Because while those village girls preen and prepare for glory, you have actual work to do, real purpose, not fantasy. The other orphanage workers, 3 younger nuns and 2 widows from the village, kept their eyes down, scrubbing in silence. They'd learned long ago not to interfere when Sister Marin focused her particular brand of correction on Alara. I wasn't daydreaming, sister. I was just wishing you were down there with them. Sister Marin's thin lips curved into something that might have been a smile on a kinder face. Wishing you were beautiful enough, worthy enough, to stand in that moon trial circle. Alara's throat tightened. She returned to her washing, plunging her hands back into water hot enough to punish. No, sister. I know my place. Do you? Sister Marin moved closer, her shadow falling across Alara's work. Because I see the way you watch them, the way you press your face to that window like a starving dog watching a feast. One of the younger nuns, Sister Beatrice, who sometimes snuck Alara extra bread, made a soft sound of protest. Sister Marin silenced her with a glance. Alara has been here since she was 3 days old, Sister Marin continued, her voice taking on the rehearsed quality of a lesson repeated too many times. Abandoned on our doorstep without even a note. No family, no pack, no lineage. The moon goddess herself must have turned away from her bloodline, or why else would she be left with nothing? Not even a name. We had to give her that. The words were familiar. Alara had heard them every year on her birthday, every time she asked about her parents, every time she dared to dream of something beyond these walls. I'm grateful for everything the orphanage has given me, Alara said quietly. Because that was the expected response. Gratitude is shown through service, not wistful staring. Sister Marin picked up one of the sheets Alara had washed, examining it with narrowed eyes. This has a stain. Redo it. It didn't have a stain. Alara had checked it twice. But she took the sheet and plunged it back into the water without argument, because arguing with Sister Marin was like arguing with winter, pointless and likely to leave you frozen. The washing room door burst open. Lily tumbled inside, all 7 years old, and scraped knees and wild auburn hair escaping her braids. Her face was flushed with excitement, her yellow dress, the nice one they saved for village market days, covered in mud. Alara, guess what I saw? There's a Lily Thornbrook. Sister Marin's voice could have frozen the sun. Look at yourself. That dress was clean this morning. Lily's excitement crumbled, her small shoulders hunched forward, her eyes dropping to the floor. I'm sorry, sister. You were just being careless and ungrateful, as usual. Sister Marin advanced on the child like a storm cloud. Do you know how much that dress cost? How many donations we had to beg for to clothe you? I didn't mean to. You never mean to. That's the problem with orphans like you. No parents to teach you proper respect, proper discipline. Sister Marin gripped Lily's thin arm. You'll go to bed without supper tonight. Perhaps hunger will teach you what words cannot. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. But sister, I'm already so hungry. Then you should have thought of that before ruining a perfectly good dress. Elara's hands stilled in the wash water. She watched Lily's face crumple, watched the little girl try so hard not to cry in front of Sister Marin because crying only made the punishments worse. Something in Elara's chest cracked. It was my fault, sister. The words came out before Elara could stop them. Every eye in the washing room turned toward her. Sister Marin's expression shifted from anger to predatory interest. I beg your pardon? The dress. Elara set down the sheet, turning to face the nun fully. I told Lily she could play by the river. I said I'd clean the dress if it got dirty. So the fault is mine, not hers. It was a lie. Lily had been nowhere near the river. But Sister Marin needed a target for her disappointment with the world. And Elara had learned long ago to be that target when it meant protecting the younger children. Sister Marin released Lily's arm. She moved toward Elara with the slow, deliberate steps of a predator who'd just found better prey. Is that so? Yes, sister. You gave a child permission to ruin orphanage property? I made a mistake in judgment. I'll accept whatever punishment. The slap came fast and sharp, snapping Elara's head to the side. Her cheek blazed with heat. The metallic taste of blood touched her tongue where her teeth had cut the inside of her mouth. Sister Beatrice gasped. The other workers suddenly found their washing very interesting. Lily made a small, wounded sound. Don't, Elara said quietly, catching the little girl's eye. Go to your room, Lily. It's all right. But you, go. Lily fled, her footsteps echoing up the stairs. Sister Marin stood inches from Elara, breathing hard, her hand still raised. In the harsh light of the washing room, she looked ancient and bitter, carved from years of choosing cruelty over mercy in the name of order. You think you're noble, Sister Marin said softly. Taking punishment for that wild child. Playing the martyr. Elara kept her eyes down, her cheek throbbing. No, sister. You think it makes you special. Better than the other orphans. Sister Marin's voice dropped to a whisper. Only Elara could hear. But it doesn't. It just makes you a fool. And tomorrow, when the moon trial begins, and those beautiful village girls present themselves to the Alpha King, you'll still be here, washing sheets, scrubbing floors, living the only life someone like you deserves. She turned away, her habit rustling. Finish your work. All of it. I want every sheet in this orphanage cleaned by dawn, or you'll spend tomorrow in the root cellar instead of watching the trial ceremony. Sister Marin left, taking her storm cloud presence with her. The washing room exhaled. Sister Beatrice approached cautiously, pressing a damp cloth to Elara's split lip. You shouldn't provoke her, she whispered. She's worse this time of year. The moon trials always make her bitter. She was going to punish Lily. Lily will recover. But you. Sister Beatrice glanced at the mountain of unwashed sheets. This will take all night. Then I'll work all night. Elara. I'm fine, sister, really. But she wasn't fine. As the other workers gradually returned to their tasks, as the evening deepened into night, as her hands grew numb in the wash water, Elara felt something dark and desperate coiling in her chest. Sister Marin was right about one thing. Tomorrow, the moon trial would begin. The Alpha King himself would arrive in Crescent Hollow, as he did every year, traveling to each village in the kingdom to observe the ceremony. Unmated females of age would present themselves in the sacred circle, offering their throats in the ancient ritual that might, if the moon goddess blessed them, result in the king choosing them as his mate. It was every pack's dream. To have their daughter, their sister, their pack member chosen by the most powerful alpha in 5 kingdoms. Elara had never been allowed to even attend. Orphans without lineage don't participate in sacred ceremonies. Sister Marin had explained years ago, when Elara first came of age. The moon trial is for wolves with proud bloodlines, with packs to represent. You have nothing. You are nothing. Why would the Alpha King ever look at you? Elara scrubbed another sheet until her knuckles bled into the water. Why would he, indeed? The church bells woke Elara from her half-sleep on the washing room floor. Dawn. The moon trial was today. She dragged herself upright, her back screaming in protest. Every muscle ached, Her hands looked like raw meat wrapped around bone. But the sheets were clean, all of them hanging in neat rows in the drying room. Elara stumbled to the window. The village square had transformed overnight. A massive silver circle had been drawn in the center, filled with intricate runes that seemed to shimmer in the early morning light. White flowers, moon blooms, sacred to the ceremony, bordered the circle in perfect symmetry. Villagers gathered at the edges, dressed in their finest clothes, and the girls, 20 young women, stood in a nervous line, each wearing the traditional white ceremonial dress. Their hair was adorned with silver clips. Their throats were bare and exposed as ritual demanded. Elara recognized most of them. Daughters of the village merchant families, the blacksmith's niece, the mayor's 2 daughters, both golden-haired and stunning. Then the crowd parted. A procession entered the square, and even from her distant window, Elara felt the power rippling through the air like heat from a forge. The Alpha King's guard came first, 12 massive wolves in human form, their eyes scanning the crowd for threats. They wore black leather armor marked with the silver moon crest of the royal pack. Then him, Alpha King Theron Silvercrest. Even at this distance, he was overwhelming. Tall enough to tower over his own guards, broad-shouldered, moving with the lethal grace of a predator who'd never known defeat. His hair was dark as midnight, pulled back to reveal a face that looked carved from stone and moonlight, beautiful and brutal in equal measure. But it was his eyes that made Elara's breath catch. Even from here, even through the crowd, she could see they were silver, not gray. Not blue, but true silver, like mercury or starlight made solid. Alpha eyes, king eyes, eyes that had seen 1,000 moon trials and rejected every throat offered. The Alpha King hadn't chosen a mate in 12 years. Not since the night his father died and he'd taken the throne at age 20. Rumor said he was cursed. Others whispered he was waiting for something or someone specific. Most just assumed he was too proud to accept anyone less than perfect. Elara watched him take his position at the north point of the silver circle. His guards fanned out. The village elder approached, carrying the ceremonial bowl of moon water that would sanctify the ritual. The moon trial was beginning. Beautiful, isn't he? Elara spun around. Lily stood in the washing room doorway, her auburn hair a tangled mess, her face still carrying the tear tracks from last night. What are you doing out of bed? If Sister Marin catches you. She went to watch the trial. All the sisters did. Lily moved to the window, pressing her small nose against the glass. I wanted to see him. The Alpha King. Is it true he can kill someone just by looking at them? No. That's just stories. But he's really strong? Stronger than anyone, Elara admitted, her eyes drawn back to that imposing figure in the square. The strongest Alpha in generations. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then, in that too perceptive way children sometimes had. Do you wish you could go down there? Stand in the circle? Did she? Elara had told herself no for years. Had convinced herself she'd accepted her place, her fate, her role as the unwanted orphan who'd never be anything more. But watching those girls in their white dresses, watching the Alpha King's silver eyes move over them with casual disinterest, something in Elara's chest ached with a longing she'd tried so hard to bury. It doesn't matter what I wish, Elara said finally. I don't have a pack. I don't have a bloodline. The moon goddess doesn't hear prayers from orphans like me. That's not true, Lily said fiercely. Sister Marin is wrong. She's wrong about everything. You're the best person in this whole orphanage, the whole village. If the moon goddess doesn't see that, then she's blind. Elara smiled despite herself, pulling Lily into a brief hug. You're going to get us both in trouble with talk like that. I don't care. Lily's words cut off with a sharp gasp. Not fear, pain. The little girl doubled over, clutching her stomach. Her face went sheet white, her breath coming in short, desperate pants. Lily, what's wrong? It hurts, Lily whimpered. My stomach, something's wrong. Then she started coughing. Blood spattered the washing room floor. Chapter 2. The Poison's Price. Dr. Aldrich's hands trembled as he examined Lily's pale, sweating form on the infirmary cot. Nightshade, he said finally, his voice grave, mixed with wolfsbane extract. Someone poisoned this child. The word hit the room like a physical blow. Elara stood frozen by Lily's bedside, the little girl's blood still staining her washing dress. Sister Marin loomed in the doorway, her face carved from ice and fury. Sister Beatrice hovered near the medicine cabinet, wringing her hands. "That's impossible," Sister Marin said sharply. "No one in this orphanage would." "Someone did." Dr. Aldrich pulled a small vial from his bag, holding it up to the light. The liquid inside shimmered dark purple, viscous and wrong. "This is widow's kiss, a very specific poison. Expensive. Difficult to obtain. It causes internal bleeding, organ failure. Without the antidote, she has maybe 6 hours." 6 hours. Elara's knees nearly buckled. She gripped the edge of Lily's cot, her knuckles white. "Then give her the antidote, please, whatever it costs." "I don't have it." Dr. Aldrich's weathered face creased with genuine sorrow. "Widow's kiss antidote requires moon lotus extract, blessed silver water, and phoenix tear ingredients I haven't stocked in 20 years because this poison hasn't been used in the kingdom since the blood wars." "Then where can we get it?" Elara demanded. "There has to be somewhere. The royal alchemist would have it." "In the capital." Dr. Aldrich glanced toward the window, where the sounds of the moon trial ceremony drifted up from the village square. "But that's 3 days' hard ride from here." "She doesn't have 3 days." Lily made a small, wounded sound. Her eyes fluttered open, glazed with pain and fever. "Elara, I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here." Elara grabbed Lily's small, cold hand. "You're going to be fine, I promise." "Promises you can't keep are just another form of cruelty," Sister Marin said from the doorway. Her voice carried none of its usual venom, just flat, exhausted resignation. "The child is going to die. We should prepare her soul, not give her false hope. She's not going to die." Elara whirled on the nun. "She's 7 years old. She hasn't even lived yet. There has to be something." "There is one option," Dr. Aldrich interrupted quietly. Everyone turned to him. The old doctor set down his vial, his expression troubled. "The Alpha King travels with a full medical retinue. Royal physicians, alchemists, healers. They would have widow's kiss antidote in their supplies. Protocols demand it for royal protection." Hope flared in Elara's chest like a struck match. "Then we ask him. We go down there right now and what?" Sister Marin's laugh was bitter as winter wind. "You think the Alpha King concerns himself with dying orphans? He's in the middle of the moon trial, the most sacred ceremony in our culture. You think he'll interrupt it because some unnamed child ate the wrong plant? She didn't eat the wrong plant. Someone poisoned her deliberately. That changes nothing." Sister Marin moved into the room properly, her habit rustling like dead leaves. "Even if you could get an audience with the king, which you can't. Even if you could convince him to spare a vial of royal antidote, which you couldn't. What would you offer in exchange?" "We have no money, no political influence. Nothing the most powerful alpha in 5 kingdoms could possibly want." The words hung in the air like a funeral shroud. Lily's breathing had turned shallow, rapid. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. Elara looked down at the little girl who'd defended her just an hour ago. The child who believed Elara was good, was worthy, was worth something despite what Sister Marin and the world insisted. The child who was dying because someone had poisoned her. Why? The question burned in Elara's mind. Lily was 7. Powerless. Harmless. Who would want to kill a child? "There is one thing," Dr. Aldrich said slowly, reluctantly. "One bargaining chip that might work." Sister Marin's eyes narrowed. "What?" "The moon trial isn't just ceremony. It's contract law, ancient, binding, recognized by every pack court in the kingdoms." The doctor's gaze moved to Elara, heavy with implication. "If someone of age offers themselves in the circle, offers their throat freely and without coercion, the Alpha King is bound by ritual law to at least hear their petition before accepting or rejecting the bond." Understanding crashed over Elara like ice water. "No," Sister Marin said sharply. "Absolutely not." "I'll do it," Elara said. "You can't. You're not registered. You have no pack lineage, no family to sponsor you." "The ritual law doesn't require lineage," Dr. Aldrich interrupted. "Only that the participant be unmated, of age, and willing. The registry is tradition, not law." Sister Beatrice made a soft sound of protest. But Alara, if you enter that circle and the Alpha King rejects you publicly, you'll be marked as unwanted by the strongest alpha in the kingdoms. No pack will ever accept you. No mate will ever consider you. You'll be more unwanted than I already am? Alara's voice came out harsher than she intended. She gentled it, looking at the young nun who'd been kind to her. I'm already nothing, Sister Beatrice. Already rejected. Already marked as worthless. What's one more rejection? That's not true. It is. Alara turned back to Lily, stroking the child's sweat-damp hair. But Lily is everything. She's brave and fierce, and she believes the world can be good. If I can save her, if there's even a chance, I have to try. The Alpha King will refuse you, Sister Marin said flatly. He's rejected every throat offered for 12 years. Beautiful daughters, from the most powerful packs in the kingdoms. What makes you think he'll even look at an orphan with no name, no lineage, no worth? He won't have to accept me, Alara said. He just has to hear me. And if Dr. Aldrich is right about ritual law, he's bound to do that much. Sister Marin studied her for a long moment. Something shifted in the nun's ice-carved expression. Not warmth, never that, but perhaps a grudging respect. If you do this, Sister Marin said slowly, if you enter that circle and petition the Alpha King, you're no longer under orphanage protection. Win or lose. Accept or reject, you can't come back here. Do you understand? The words should have hurt. Instead, they felt like freedom. I understand. Alara, no. Sister Beatrice started forward, but Sister Marin raised a hand. Her choice, her consequences. The older nun moved to the door, pausing. You have 10 minutes. The moon trial is halfway through. If you're going to interrupt it, better to do it before he's rejected all 20 girls and his patience is completely exhausted. She left. Sister Beatrice rushed to Alara, gripping her shoulders. Please reconsider. There has to be another way. There isn't. Alara squeezed the young nun's hands, grateful for her kindness. Take care of Lily. If I can get the antidote, I'll find a way to get it back here. And if the king refuses, then Lily dies, and I'll have failed the one person who believed I was worth something. Alara didn't say it out loud. Dr. Aldrich approached, pressing something into Alara's hand. A small silver pendant on a thin chain, a moon symbol, simple but clearly old. My grandmother's, he said quietly. She was a pack healer. 3 generations back. It's not much lineage, but it's something. Wear it. Let the king see you're not completely without heritage. Alara's throat tightened. Doctor, I can't. You can. And you will. The old man's eyes were suspiciously bright. Because that child deserves a chance, and you're the only one brave enough or foolish enough to give it to her. Alara fastened the pendant around her neck. The silver was warm against her skin, humming with some faint, ancient power. She looked down at Lily one more time. The little girl's eyes were closed now, her breathing labored. Blood stained the white infirmary sheets. I'm going to save you, Alara whispered. I promise. Then she turned and walked out of the orphanage for the last time. The village square had gone silent. Alara pushed through the crowd. Her washing dress still stained with Lily's blood. Her hair wild and unbraided. Her hands raw from last night's endless scrubbing. She looked nothing like the 20 girls in their pristine white ceremonial dresses. Nothing like the carefully prepared, beautifully presented potential mates who stood in the silver circle with their throats gracefully exposed. She looked like what she was. A desperate orphan with everything to lose and nothing left to bargain with except herself. The Alpha King stood at the north point of the circle, his silver eyes moving over the presented girls with distant, clinical disinterest. Beside him, his beta, a scarred man with kind eyes, murmured something. The king's expression didn't change. Alara reached the edge of the silver circle. The village elder, mid-speech about the sacred bonds and ancient traditions, faltered. Conversation rippled through the crowd. The 20 ceremonial girls turned, their perfect composure cracking with confusion and disdain. And the Alpha King's silver eyes locked onto Alara. The world seemed to hold its breath. Alara felt the weight of that gaze like a physical thing, assessing, measuring, seeing everything she was and wasn't. Power radiated from him in waves that made her wolf instincts scream to submit, to drop her eyes, to run. She didn't run. Forgive the interruption, Alpha King. Alara said, her voice carrying across the silent square. But I invoke ritual law. I am unmated, of age, and I offer myself freely to the moon trial. Chaos erupted. The village elder sputtered protests. The ceremonial girls broke into scandalized whispers. Sister Marin appeared at the crowd's edge, her face unreadable. But the Alpha King raised one hand, and the square fell silent again. Your name, he said. His voice was deep, commanding, edged with something that might have been curiosity or might have been irritation. Alara, Alpha King. I have no family name. Your pack? I have none. Your lineage? Alara touched the silver moon pendant at her throat. My only heritage is this, a healer's symbol, 3 generations old. Nothing more. One of the king's guards stepped forward, his hand on his sword. Sire, this is clearly a disruption. She has no right. She has every right. The king interrupted, his eyes never leaving Alara. Ritual law is clear. Any unmated wolf of age may present themselves. Lineage is tradition, not requirement. He moved then, stepping into the silver circle with the fluid grace of a predator. The runes beneath his feet flared bright, responding to his alpha power. You understand what you're doing? He asked Alara. If I reject you here, publicly, in the sacred circle, you'll be marked. No pack will accept you. No mate will claim you. You'll be outcast. I understand. Then why? He moved closer, each step deliberate. 20 beautiful, well-bred females have offered themselves today. I've rejected them all. What makes you think? I don't think you'll accept me, Alara interrupted. The guards tensed. The crowd gasped. But she kept going, kept meeting those silver eyes. I'm not here for a mate bond, Alpha King. I'm here to save a life. Interest flickered across his face. Explain. A child in the Crescent Hollow orphanage has been poisoned. Widow's kiss. She's dying. The antidote requires ingredients we don't have, but your royal alchemists would carry them. I'm not asking for a mate bond. I'm asking you to trade your antidote for my throat. Complete silence. The Alpha King studied her for a long moment. Then, incredibly, his lips curved into something that might have been a smile on a less dangerous face. You want to negotiate with the Alpha King, in the middle of the moon trial, using yourself as collateral? Yes. Bold. He circled her slowly, assessing. Stupid, but bold. You realize I could simply refuse? Walk away, let the child die, and you'd have accomplished nothing except humiliating yourself. You could, Alara agreed, but you won't. How do you know? Because, Alara turned to keep him in sight as he circled. Ritual law says you must hear a petition before rejecting a bond. And I haven't finished my petition yet. The beta actually laughed a short, surprised bark of sound. The Alpha King's silver eyes gleamed with something that might have been respect. Finish then, he said. I'm listening. Alara took a breath. Her hands were shaking, but she forced them still. The child who's dying, her name is Lily. She's 7 years old. She has no family, no pack, no one to fight for her except me. Someone poisoned her deliberately, with a compound that hasn't been used in the kingdoms since the Blood Wars. That means 2 things. Whoever did it had access to rare, expensive materials, and they wanted her dead specifically. The king's expression shifted, became more focused. Continue. A 7-year-old orphan has nothing worth killing for. No inheritance, no pack secrets, no political value, which means someone poisoned her to hurt someone else, to send a message, to cause pain. And if that's true, if someone used a child as a weapon, Alara's voice strengthened, then saving her isn't just mercy, it's justice. And I know the Alpha King values justice above all things. You know nothing about what I value. I know you've rejected every throat offered for 12 years. I know you're called the unmated king, the cold alpha, the lonely wolf. I know your people whisper that you're cursed, that you're too proud to accept anyone less than perfect. Alara stepped closer, entering the silver circle properly now. But I also know you ended the Blood Wars. You rebuilt 3 devastated territories. You changed pack laws to protect orphans and unmated wolves. Someone who does those things doesn't lack compassion. They just haven't found someone worth mating. She was close enough now to see the flecks of starlight in those silver eyes. Close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body, the barely contained power that made her wolf instincts go silent with awe. So here's my petition. Alpha King Theron Silvercrest, save Lily, give me the antidote. In exchange I'll offer you what no one else has: complete honesty. I don't want to be your mate. I don't want your throne. I just want that little girl to live. And if you'll help me save her, I'll owe you a debt that I'll spend the rest of my life repaying. She knelt then, the traditional supplicant's pose, and in the sacred circle, with the runes glowing beneath her and the crowd holding its collective breath, Alara tilted her head back and bared her throat. I offer myself freely, she said, not for a bond, for a life. The Alpha King stared down at her. 5 seconds passed. 10. 20. Then he did something no one expected. He knelt. In the sacred circle, in front of his guards, and the village, and the 20 rejected ceremonial girls, the Alpha King of 5 kingdoms knelt before a blood-stained orphan and placed his hand over her bared throat. The touch was gentle, almost reverent. You're right, he said quietly. I do value justice above all things. And you're also right that someone who poisons children deserves consequences. His hand tightened slightly, not enough to hurt, just enough to make her feel the leashed strength there. But you're wrong about one thing. What? His silver eyes met hers, and Alara saw something there that made her breath catch, something hungry and dangerous and achingly lonely. You think I won't accept you because you're beneath me. Unworthy. Wrong. His thumb brushed her racing pulse. But what if I'm the one who's been waiting? What if I've rejected every throat offered, because none of them were honest? None of them wanted me, just my crown, my power, my throne. But you. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. You just want to save a child. No hidden motives, no political schemes, just desperate, reckless, stupid courage. He pulled back, his eyes searching hers. So here's my counter-offer, brave little orphan. I'll save your child. I'll find out who poisoned her, and make them answer for it. And in exchange, his teeth grazed her throat, not breaking skin. Not yet, but the promise was there. I'll mark you. The crowd erupted. Chapter 3. The Mark of Kings. No. The word tore from Alara's throat before she could stop it. The Alpha King's hand stilled against her neck. Around them, the silver circle's runes flared brighter, responding to the tension crackling between them like summer lightning. No? His voice was soft, dangerous. You enter my moon trial. You bare your throat in the sacred circle. You invoke ritual law. And now you refuse the bond? I didn't ask for a bond. Alara tried to pull back, but his grip tightened, not painful, but unbreakable. I asked for medicine, for help. I didn't ask to be marked, to be claimed, to be mine. The word rolled off his tongue like a threat and a promise. That's what a mate bond means. Little orphan. Mine. Completely. Irrevocably. Forever. Panic clawed at Alara's chest. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was supposed to reject her. Agree to help out of duty or compassion. Send her away with the antidote and nothing more. Not this. Never this. I can't, she whispered. Please. I'm no one. Nothing. You deserve. I deserve honesty. His free hand caught her chin, forcing her to meet his silver eyes. I deserve someone who looks at me and sees a person, not a crown. I deserve someone brave enough to crash my moon trial covered in blood, desperate enough to offer herself for a dying child, reckless enough to tell the Alpha King exactly what she thinks of him. You don't know me. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. His thumb traced her jawline, surprisingly gentle. I know your name is Alara. I know you have no pack, no family, nothing to gain from this except a child's life. I know you're terrified right now, but you're not running. And I know, his voice dropped lower, intimate, that when I touched your throat, your wolf recognized mine. It was true. And Alara hated it. The moment his hand had touched her neck, something deep inside her had responded, something primal and ancient that had nothing to do with choice or logic. Her wolf, usually so quiet and small, had surged forward with recognition that felt like coming home. Mate, her wolf had whispered. Ours. That's just biology, Alara said desperately. Alpha pheromones, proximity, the sacred circle amplifying everything. It means everything. The Alpha King Theron, she had to remember his name was Theron, leaned closer. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. If your wolf recognizes me, if mine recognizes you, then this is fate. I don't believe in fate. Then believe in deals. His expression hardened, became more calculating. You want to save the child. I want you. Those terms are simple enough even for a desperate orphan to understand. The words stung, but Alara forced herself to think past the panic. Lily was dying. Every second they argued was another second the poison spread through her small body. Dr. Aldrich had said 6 hours. How many had passed already? She couldn't afford to refuse. Couldn't afford pride or fear, or the voice in her head screaming that this was wrong, impossible, a trap. If I agree, Alara said slowly. If I let you mark me, the antidote goes to Lily first. Immediately. Before anything else happens. Theron's lips curved. Negotiating again. You have no leverage, little orphan. I could mark you right now. Take what's mine by ritual right, and then decide whether to help your child. You could, Alara agreed. But you won't. How do you know? Because you're not a monster. She met his eyes steadily, ignoring the way her heart hammered against her ribs. You're an alpha. And alphas protect, even when it's inconvenient, even when it costs them. Something flickered in his expression, surprise, perhaps, or recognition. You should have been born into a pack, he said quietly. You think like an alpha. I think like someone who's had to fight for every scrap of survival. Alara didn't look away. Do we have a deal or not? The antidote for Lily. Immediately. Then you can do whatever ritual claiming you think you need. Theron studied her for a long moment. Then he raised his voice, addressing his beta without taking his eyes off Alara. Cade, send for the royal physician. Tell him to bring Widow's Kiss antidote to the Crescent Hollow orphanage immediately. A child's been poisoned 7 years old, auburn hair, answers to Lily. He's to treat her personally and report back within the hour. Sire, the beta's voice carried hesitation. Are you certain? Now, Cade. Footsteps retreated rapidly. Orders were shouted. The crowd murmured with confusion and speculation. Alara felt some of the tension leave her body. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Theron's hand tightened on her throat again, his expression growing darker. Because now comes the part you're not going to like. Before Alara could ask what he meant, he moved. His teeth sank into the side of her neck, not the jugular, not a killing bite, but the traditional marking spot just below the ear where scent glands were strongest. Pain flared bright and sharp, followed immediately by something else: heat. Pleasure, connection flooding through her like liquid fire. Alara gasped, her hands flying up to grip his shoulders. Not to push him away, she wouldn't. Some instinct deeper than thought was pulling her closer, but to anchor herself against the overwhelming sensation. The mate bond snapped into place like a physical thing. Suddenly she could feel him, not just the body pressed against hers, but his emotions, his power, his presence in her mind like a second heartbeat. Satisfaction, possessiveness, and underneath it all, a loneliness so deep and vast it made her chest ache with sympathetic pain. Theron pulled back, his teeth stained with her blood. His silver eyes had gone molten, more wolf than man. Mine, he growled. My mate, my queen. The words reverberated through the bond, sealing something Alara wasn't sure could ever be undone. Around them, the silver circle exploded with light. The runes flared so bright that people in the crowd cried out, shielding their eyes. The white moonbloom flowers bordering the circle burst into full bloom all at once, releasing a scent that was sweet and intoxicating. And overhead, though it was mid-morning, the moon became visible in the sky, a pale ghost against the blue, but undeniably there. The moon goddess was acknowledging the bond. Sister Marin stood at the crowd's edge, her face carved from shock. The 20 ceremonial girls looked like they'd been slapped. And the village elder dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his weathered face. The prophecy, he whispered. After all these years, the prophecy is true. Alara tried to focus past the sensations flooding through her. What prophecy? But Theron was already pulling her to her feet, his arm around her waist like he'd never let go. We're leaving, he announced to the crowd. The moon trial is concluded. My mate and I returned to the capital immediately. Wait, Alara tried to pull free. I need to see Lily. Need to make sure she's… My physician will save her. I gave my word. Theron's grip was iron. But you're coming with me. Now. A mate bond this strong. Acknowledged this clearly by the moon goddess herself. We can't delay the completion ritual. Completion ritual. The words sent ice through Alara's veins. She knew what that meant. Every unmated wolf knew. The bite was just the first step, the claiming, the marking, the announcement of intent. But to complete the mate bond, to make it unbreakable and eternal, required the full ritual. Which meant, no. Alara said again, more forcefully. I need to stay. Need to make sure Lily's safe. That whoever poisoned her doesn't try again. I can't just leave. You can and you will. Theron's voice had gone alpha hard, the command weight behind it making Alara's wolf whimper with the need to obey. You're my mate now. That means you're a target. Every enemy I've made in 12 years of ruling will see you as a weakness to exploit. The only place you're safe is at my side. In the capital. Behind palace walls. I don't care about safe. I care about… The child will be protected. Theron cut her off, his patience clearly wearing thin. I'm assigning 2 of my personal guards to watch her until we determine who tried to kill her and why. She'll be safer than she's ever been in her life. But you… His hand cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. You are my priority now. My mate. My responsibility. And I will not risk you. The bond hummed between them, carrying emotions Alara couldn't fully parse. Possessiveness, yes, but also fear. Genuine, bone-deep fear that something would happen to her. It should have been touching. Instead, it felt like a cage closing. I didn't ask for this. Alara whispered. Didn't want this. I just wanted to save her. I know. Theron's expression softened slightly. But the moon goddess has her own plans. And arguing with fate is a losing battle, trust me, I've tried. Before Alara could respond, he swept her up into his arms like she weighed nothing. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, finally understanding what they were witnessing. The Alpha King, unmated for 12 years, had finally found his queen. A nobody orphan had accomplished what daughters of the most powerful packs couldn't. It should have felt like a fairy tale. It felt like a nightmare. They were 3 miles from the village when Alara finally found her voice again. The Alpha King's carriage was massive, black lacquered wood inlaid with silver moons, drawn by 6 horses each the size of small bears. Inside, the seats were cushioned velvet, the windows curtained with silk. Theron sat across from her, his silver eyes never leaving her face. 2 guards rode ahead, 2 behind. And Cade the Beta with the kind eyes and scarred face rode alongside, occasionally calling updates through the window. The physician reached the orphanage, sire. The child's being treated now. Good. Tell him I want hourly reports until she's stable. Yes, sire. The window closed again, leaving Alara alone with her new mate. You're afraid of me, Theron said. Not a question, an observation. I'm afraid of what you represent, Alara corrected. She clutched the edge of her seat, trying to ground herself against the bond's constant pull. I'm a nobody. An orphan. I don't know how to be a queen. I don't know how to navigate pack politics or royal courts, or… You'll learn. That's not… Alara took a breath, forced herself to think clearly. Why me? Really? You said I'm honest, that I don't want your crown. But there are honest people in your own pack. People who've trained their whole lives to be worthy of an alpha. Why choose the broken orphan covered in blood? Theron was quiet for a long moment. Then he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, close enough that she could see the faint scars on his knuckles, evidence of battles fought and won. 12 years ago, he said quietly, my father was murdered, poisoned at his own victory feast after ending the blood wars. I was 20 years old, barely trained, and suddenly responsible for 5 kingdoms worth of traumatized, fractured packs. Alara knew this story, everyone did. The late Alpha King's death had nearly sparked another war before Theron ruthlessly consolidated power. Every moon trial after that, Theron continued. I'd stand in the circle and watch beautiful, perfect females offer their throats. And I'd wonder, are they here for me, or for my crown? Do they see Theron, or do they see Alpha King Silvercrest, ruler of territories, commander of armies, symbol of power? His silver eyes met hers, and the loneliness in them was so raw it hurt to witness. I could never tell. Every smile could be manipulation. Every kind word could be strategy. Every offered throat could be a trap. He reached across the space between them, his fingers brushing the fresh mark on her neck, his mark. But you crashed into my moon trial, desperate and bleeding, with no plan except to save a child. You didn't want me. You didn't want my crown. You wanted medicine, and you were willing to trade yourself to get it. That kind of honesty, that kind of selfless stupidity is rarer than gold in my world. So you marked me because I was too foolish to play politics. I marked you because you were brave enough to be real. His hand lingered on her throat, his thumb tracing her racing pulse. And because when I touched you in that circle, my wolf recognized you as mate. Not convenient alliance. Not political advantage. Mate. Mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have been terrifying, but through the bond, Alara could feel the truth beneath it, the desperate need to have someone, anyone, who saw him as more than a crown and a collection of territories. She almost felt sorry for him. I still don't know how to be a queen, she said quietly. Then I'll teach you. Theron pulled back, some of his usual commanding demeanor returning. But first, we need to complete the bond. The marking is public, everyone knows you're mine now. But the completion ritual will seal it, make it unbreakable. And given what happened to my father, given the enemies I've made. His jaw tightened. I won't risk a partial bond. Won't give my enemies a chance to exploit the weakness. Elara's stomach twisted. The completion ritual. She knew what it required: 3 days of seclusion, ancient rites, physical intimacy that would bind them together on every level. Mind, body, soul, wolf. No going back after that. And if I refuse? She asked. If I say I can't do this, can't be what you need. The bond is already made. Theron's voice was gentle but immovable. My bite marked you. The moon goddess acknowledged it. Refusing the completion ritual now would leave us both in agony, the half-formed bond pulling at us constantly, growing more painful the longer it's incomplete. It would be torture for us both. So I have no choice. You had a choice when you entered that circle. His silver eyes hardened. You chose to offer yourself. You chose to negotiate with me. You chose to bare your throat. Now you have to live with the consequences of that choice, same as I do. It wasn't fair. But then, Alara had stopped believing in fairness the day she was abandoned on the orphanage doorstep as a newborn. She touched the mark on her neck, feeling the slight sting, the heat of it. Through the bond, she could sense Theron's impatience, his determination, his bone-deep need to complete what they'd started. And underneath it all, so carefully hidden she almost missed it, fear. He was afraid she'd reject him. Afraid she'd find a way to break the bond. Afraid that even finding his mate after 12 years of searching, would somehow be taken from him. The Alpha King, most powerful wolf in 5 kingdoms, was terrified of losing the broken orphan he'd just claimed. It was absurd. Tragic. And somehow, it made him real. 3 days, Alara said finally. The completion ritual takes 3 days, right? Theron nodded warily. Then I have conditions. She straightened in her seat, forcing herself to meet his eyes. During those 3 days, your physician continues treating Lily. Your guards protect her. And you assign someone you trust to investigate who poisoned her and why. Done. And when we return to the capital, when I'm your queen or mate or whatever I'm supposed to be, I want the power to protect orphans. Not just Lily, but all of them. The forgotten ones, the abandoned ones, the ones like me who slip through every crack in the system. Theron's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. Negotiating again. You really do think like an alpha. Is that a yes? It's a yes. He extended his hand across the carriage, formal, like sealing a business deal. You give me 3 days to complete the bond, to make you truly mine. In exchange, I give you power, protection, and purpose. You'll be queen. You'll have resources no orphan ever dreamed of. And you can use them however you see fit. Alara stared at his offered hand. This was it, the final commitment, the point of no return. Once she shook his hand, once she agreed to the completion ritual, she'd be bound to him forever. Queen of 5 kingdoms. mate to the most powerful alpha alive. A nobody orphan who'd wanted nothing except to save one small life. Through the carriage window, Alara could see the sun beginning to set. Back in Crescent Hollow, Lily would be waking up if the antidote worked. If the physician had reached her in time. If Alara's desperate bargain had actually saved her. Please. Alara prayed to the moon goddess who'd acknowledged this bond. Please let her live. Let this nightmare be worth something. She took Theron's hand. His fingers closed around hers like a promise, and a prison both. 3 days, she said. Then we face whatever comes next together. Together, Theron agreed. And as the carriage rolled toward the capital, toward a future Alara had never imagined and wasn't sure she wanted, she felt the bond between them pulse with something that might have been hope, or might have been warning. They arrived at the summer palace just after midnight. It wasn't the main royal residence that was in the capital, another day's journey north. But the summer palace served as a way station for the Alpha King during his annual moon trial circuit, and more importantly, it was secluded, private, defensible, perfect for a completion ritual that couldn't be interrupted. Theron helped Alara from the carriage, his hand lingering on her waist. Through the bond, she felt his anticipation mixed with something darker possessiveness that bordered on obsession. The ritual chambers are prepared, sire, Cade reported, falling into step beside them. The beta's eyes flicked to Alara with something that might have been sympathy, and the physician sent word the child is stable. The antidote worked. She's sleeping now, but her vitals are strong. Relief flooded through Alara so intensely she stumbled. Theron caught her immediately, his arm around her waist. Lily's alive? Alara's voice cracked. She's really going to be okay? My physician says she'll make a full recovery. Theron's tone was satisfied not because he cared about Lily specifically, Alara realized through the bond, but because his mate was happy. Your sacrifice wasn't in vain, little orphan. Sacrifice. The words settled over Alara like a shroud. What about the investigation? She asked, as Theron guided her through the palace entrance. Who poisoned her? My trackers are working on it. Cade's expression darkened. But Widow's Kiss is a Blood Wars poison hasn't been used in over a decade. Whoever had access to it either has old military connections or, he hesitated. Or what? Or they're connected to the old regime. The one that wanted the Blood Wars to continue. Cade glanced at Theron. The one that killed your father. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Theron's grip on Alara tightened, his power suddenly crackling around them like electricity before a storm. You think someone poisoned a random orphan as a message? I think someone poisoned the orphan that your mate was closest to, Cade corrected quietly. And I think they did it right before the moon trial, right before you arrived in Crescent Hollow. That's not coincidence, sire, that's strategy. Ice flooded Alara's veins. You're saying someone knew? Knew that Theron would be at the moon trial. Knew that I'd be desperate enough to offer myself. Knew that he'd mark you? Theron finished. His silver eyes had gone cold, calculating. It's possible. I have enemies who'd love to see me mated to someone vulnerable. Someone they could use against me. But how would they know you'd choose me? Alara protested. You'd never even seen me before today. How could anyone predict? The prophecy, Theron said flatly. There was that word again. The same one the village elder had whispered when the moon goddess acknowledged their bond. What prophecy? Alara demanded. Theron and Cade exchanged a look, the kind of wordless communication that came from years of fighting side by side. Tell her, Cade said quietly. She's your mate now. She deserves to know what she's walked into. Theron's jaw worked. Then he guided Alara through a doorway, into a private sitting room where a fire already blazed in the hearth. He poured her wine from a crystal decanter. She didn't drink it, too wary, and then began to speak. 50 years ago, before the Blood Wars, before my father's reign, there was a seer in the kingdom. An old woman named Morgana, who could read the moon goddess's intentions. Theron stared into his own wine glass like it held answers. She made 3 prophecies before she died. 2 came true, the start of the Blood Wars and their eventual end. The 3rd. He trailed off. The 3rd, Cade continued when Theron couldn't, said that the Alpha King who ended the Blood Wars would have a son, and that son would be unmated until he found his true queen, a wolf with no pack, no name, no lineage, an orphan who would offer herself not for power, but for love. Alara's heart stopped. That's me. That's you, Theron confirmed. And if my enemies know about the prophecy, and they do, because it's in the royal archives, then they've been watching, waiting, looking for the moment when an orphan girl would crash into my life and fulfill Morgana's prediction. But why poison Lily? Alara's mind was racing, trying to piece it together. If they wanted to hurt me, why not poison me directly? Because the prophecy specified that the orphan queen would offer herself for love, Cade said gently. Love of a child she'd saved. If they'd poisoned you, you couldn't fulfill the prophecy. But poison a child you cared about, give you a reason to offer yourself desperately, recklessly. They ensured the prophecy would come true, Alara finished, horror dawning. They manipulated everything so I'd end up exactly where they wanted me, marked and bound to the Alpha King. So they could use you against me, Theron said, his voice deadly quiet. A vulnerable mate with no pack to protect her, no training to defend herself, no political allies to shield her from attacks. They turned the prophecy into a weapon. The room spun. Alara sank into the nearest chair, her mind reeling. She'd thought she was saving Lily. Thought she was making a noble sacrifice. But she'd just played directly into someone's hands, someone who'd poisoned a 7-year-old child to manipulate an orphan into becoming a queen. Who? Alara's voice came out hoarse. Who would do this? That's what we need to find out. Theron knelt in front of her chair, his hands covering hers. But first we complete the bond. Make it strong enough that no one can break it, use it, or exploit it. 3 days, Alara. Give me 3 days to make you powerful enough that no enemy can touch you. She wanted to refuse. Wanted to run back to Crescent Hollow, grab Lily, and disappear somewhere no prophecies or Alpha Kings or political schemes could reach them. But the mark on her neck pulsed with heat, and through the bond, she could feel Theron's desperation, his need, his absolute determination to protect what was his. And underneath it all, so deep she almost missed it, genuine care. Not love, not yet, but care. The seed of something that could become love, given time. 3 days, Alara whispered. Then we find out who's trying to destroy us and make them pay for using a child as a weapon. Theron's smile was sharp and cold and utterly predatory. Now you're thinking like a queen. Subscribe if you believe Alara deserves better than being a pawn in someone else's game. Because people like Alara need an audience that won't abandon them when the real fight begins. Drop a comment if you've ever felt manipulated by forces beyond your control. Alara needs to know she's not alone in this. Chapter 4. The Ritual's Revelation. The ritual chambers were nothing like Alara expected. She'd imagined something cold and clinical. A ceremonial space designed for duty, not intimacy. Instead, Theron led her into rooms that felt like they'd been carved from moonlight itself. The walls were pale stone veined with silver, reflecting the dozens of candles that floated in the air without visible support. The floor was covered in thick furs, white wolf pelts that were impossibly soft beneath her bare feet. And in the center of the main chamber stood a massive circular bed, draped in silk the color of midnight sky, surrounded by more of those floating candles. But it was the ceiling that stole Alara's breath. Instead of stone, there was only sky, real sky, somehow visible despite them being inside the palace. The moon hung directly overhead, full and luminous, casting silver light that made everything in the room glow. It's beautiful, Alara whispered, hating how her voice trembled. It's sacred. Theron closed the chamber door behind them, and Alara heard the heavy bolt slide into place. Locked in. These rooms were built 300 years ago specifically for royal mate bonding rituals. The magic woven into the stones ensures privacy, protection, and... He moved closer, his silver eyes reflecting the moonlight. Honesty. Honesty. The completion ritual requires complete vulnerability between mates, mind, body, and soul. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. The magic in these chambers makes lying impossible. Every thought, every feeling, every fear, it all becomes transparent through the bond. Panic flared in Alara's chest. You mean you'll be able to read my mind? We'll be able to read each other's. Theron corrected. I can't hide from you any more than you can hide from me. That's the point. True mates know each other completely. No secrets. No walls. No deceptions. The idea should have been terrifying. But through the bond, Alara felt Theron's own nervousness, carefully masked but definitely there. He was afraid too. Afraid of what she'd see when she looked into his soul. Afraid she'd find him wanting. "When does it start?" Alara asked. "It already has." Theron's hand slid down to the mark on her neck, his touch sending sparks of sensation through her. "The moment we entered these chambers, the magic activated. Can you feel it?" She could. A tingling warmth spreading through her body, starting at the mark and radiating outward. And with it came awareness, sudden, shocking awareness of Theron's presence, not just beside her but inside her mind. His emotions bleeding through the bond with increasing clarity. Desire, possessiveness, determination, and beneath it all, bone-deep loneliness that made her chest ache with sympathetic pain. "I can feel you," Alara breathed. "Your emotions, they're so loud. That will intensify over the 3 days." Theron guided her toward the center of the room, his movements careful, controlled. "By the end of the ritual, we'll be so intertwined that separation will be physically painful. That's what makes the completion bond unbreakable. Once it's fully formed, we literally can't function without each other." The words should have sounded romantic. Instead, they sounded like a life sentence. "You're afraid," Theron observed. Not accusatory, just stating fact. "I can feel your fear through the bond. Of course I'm afraid." Alara pulled away from him, pacing toward the windows that looked out over moonlit gardens. "Yesterday I was an orphan washing sheets. Today I'm supposed to be a queen, mated to the most powerful alpha in 5 kingdoms, caught in some prophecy I didn't ask for, being used as a weapon in a political game I don't understand. How am I supposed to feel?" "Angry," Theron said quietly. "I'd feel angry, if I were you." Alara spun to face him. "I am angry. Furious. Someone poisoned Lily to manipulate me. They used a child, a 7-year-old child, as bait to force me into your moon trial. And now I'm here, trapped in these chambers, about to be bound forever to a man I don't know because apparently some dead seer decided my entire life 50 years before I was born." The words echoed in the chamber. The floating candles flickered, responding to her emotional storm. Theron just watched her, his silver eyes calm. "Feel better?" "No." "Good. Anger is honest." He moved closer, each step deliberate. "You want to know what I'm feeling right now, what you'll be able to read clearly once the bond deepens." Alara wanted to say no. Instead, she found herself nodding. "Guilt," Theron said. "Because you're right, you didn't ask for any of this. You offered yourself to save a child, and I claimed you knowing it would trap you. Knowing you'd have no choice but to complete the bond once I marked you." He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I manipulated you just as surely as whoever poisoned Lily did. The only difference is I did it face to face instead of through poison." The admission shocked her. Through the bond she felt the truth of it. The guilt. Yes, but also the desperation that had driven him. 12 years of loneliness. 12 years of perfect facades and political smiles, and never knowing who to trust. And then she'd appeared honest, reckless, wanting nothing except to save a child, and he'd grabbed onto her like a drowning man grabs a lifeline. "You're using me," Alara said, but the accusation had lost its heat. "Yes," Theron agreed. "I'm using you to fill the emptiness that's been eating me alive since I took the throne. I'm using you to have one person, just one, who sees me instead of my crown. I'm using you to prove to myself that the prophecy was right, that there's someone out there who could actually want me for me." His hand came up to touch her face again, achingly gentle. "And you're using me too." Alara blinked. "What?" "You're using me to matter." His thumb traced her lower lip. "To be important, valued, seen. You're using me to save Lily and every orphan like her. You're using me to escape a life of scrubbing floors and being told you're worthless by Sister Marin and people like her." His smile was sad. "We're using each other, little orphan. At least we're honest about it." The truth of it hit Alara like cold water. He was right. She had wanted to escape, had wanted to matter, had wanted proof that Sister Marin was wrong, that she wasn't worthless, that her life could be more than endless washing and rejection. She'd just never admitted it, not even to herself. "The honesty magic is already working," Alara said quietly. "Yes." Theron's hand slid down to rest over her heart, feeling it race. And it's going to get more intense. By tomorrow, we won't be able to hide anything from each other. Every thought, every memory, every secret, it'll all be visible through the bond. Fear spiked through her again. I don't want you seeing. I know. His other hand came up, cradling her face between his palms. You don't want me seeing the worst moments. The times Sister Maren hit you. The nights you cried yourself to sleep. The 100 small cruelties that shaped you into someone who expects nothing and gives everything. Tears burned in Alara's eyes. Stop. Why? Because it hurts? Theron leaned his forehead against hers, his voice dropping to a whisper. You think your pain is worse than mine. You think you're the only one with scars. Through the bond, something shifted, a wall lowering, a door opening, and suddenly Alara could feel it. Theron's pain. Not surface emotion but deep, soul-scarring trauma. She saw flashes of memory, not her own, but his, bleeding through the bond as the ritual magic intensified. A 20-year-old Theron kneeling beside his father's body, the great Alpha King dead from poison at his own victory feast, blood on silk sheets, accusations flying, his mother's scream echoing through the palace. Standing in front of the council, barely a man, trying to hold 5 kingdoms together while assassins targeted him nightly. Learning to trust no one. Learning that every smile might hide a knife. Moon trials, year after year. Beautiful females offering their throats, and Theron using his alpha senses to read their true intentions. Greed. Ambition. Lust for power, never him always the crown. Nights alone in his bed, the mate bond howling inside him like an open wound, calling for someone who didn't exist. The memories faded, leaving Alara shaking. You see? Theron's voice was rough. We're both broken. Both scarred. Both using each other to feel whole. The difference is, I'm not ashamed of it. I don't want to be broken, Alara whispered. Too bad. His lips brushed her forehead, not quite a kiss, just contact. Broken is all we have. But maybe. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her against his chest. Maybe 2 broken pieces can fit together into something whole. Alara stood rigid in his embrace for a long moment. Then, slowly, her arms came up to grip his shirt. Not returning the hug, exactly. Just holding on. Through the bond she felt his satisfaction. His relief. His desperate hope that this, whatever this was becoming, might actually work. I don't love you, Alara said into his chest. I know. I might never love you. You might. His hand stroked her hair, soothing. Or you might learn to hate me. But either way, you'll be honest about it. And that's more than anyone's ever given me. The admission broke something in Alara's chest. She pulled back to look at him, really look at him. Not at the Alpha King, the crown, the power, but at Theron. The lonely man who'd been ruling since he was barely more than a boy. Who'd lost his father to poison and spent 12 years paranoid that everyone around him was a potential assassin. Who'd rejected every throat offered because he couldn't trust whether they wanted him or his throne. Who'd claimed her because she was the first person in 12 years to offer herself for something other than power. I'm going to disappoint you, Alara said quietly. I don't know how to be a queen. I'll make mistakes. I'll embarrass you in front of the court. I don't care. Theron's silver eyes burned into hers. I don't need perfect. I need real. And you, his hand cupped her face again, are the most real thing I've touched in 12 years. The bond pulsed between them, carrying emotions too complex to name. Not love, not yet, but something. Connection. Recognition. 2 broken souls finding unexpected resonance in each other's damage. The ritual, Alara said. What happens next? Now? Theron's thumb traced her lower lip again, his eyes darkening. Now we begin the physical bonding. It will hurt at first, the mate bond linking us on that level is intense. But it's necessary to complete the ritual. Alara's heart hammered. You mean? I mean we consummate the bond. His voice was gentle but firm. Not because I'm demanding it, but because the ritual magic requires it. Physical intimacy deepens the bond, ties our souls together. Without it, the completion will fail. And if I say no, then we stay in a half bond that will grow more painful every day until one of us goes mad from it. His expression was sympathetic but immovable. "I'm sorry, little orphan. There's no backing out now. You offered yourself in the sacred circle. I marked you. The moon goddess acknowledged it. We either complete this or we both suffer." It wasn't fair. But Alara was learning that nothing about being prophesied, about being a pawn in someone else's game, about being an orphan who dared to matter was fair. She looked at the massive bed in the center of the chamber, at the floating candles and the moonlight and the sacred space designed for this exact purpose. Then she looked at Theron, at the man she'd be bound to forever if she went through with this. "I have conditions," she said. His lips quirked. "Of course you do. During the bonding, if I say stop, you stop, no matter what the ritual requires, no matter how much the bond pulls. If I need to pause, we pause." "Agreed. And you promise, actually promise. Not just ritual magic promise that you'll find whoever poisoned Lily and make them pay." "Already promised that." His expression went cold. "Whoever used a child as a weapon against my mate signed their own death warrant." "Then," Alara took a shaky breath, "then I'm ready. Or as ready as I'll ever be." Theron studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled, a real smile, not the cold political one she'd seen in the village square. "You're terrified and trying to be brave," he observed. "It's adorable. Don't patronize me. I'm not. I'm telling you the truth, which is all either of us can do in these chambers." He began walking her backward toward the bed. Each step measured. "You're scared, angry, trapped, and still negotiating conditions. Still trying to maintain some control over a situation that's spiraling beyond anything you imagined. That's not weakness, Alara. That's strength." Her legs hit the edge of the bed. She sat down abruptly, looking up at him. The moonlight through the enchanted ceiling cast Theron's face in silver light, making him look less human and more like something carved from starlight and shadow. Powerful, ancient, dangerous. But through the bond, she felt his uncertainty, his hope, his desperate desire for this to be right, to be real, to be something other than another political transaction. "I won't hurt you," he said quietly. "Not more than the bond requires. I promise." Alara nodded, not trusting her voice. Theron knelt in front of her, the Alpha King, most powerful wolf in 5 kingdoms, kneeling before an orphan nobody. "Your terms are accepted," he said formally. "You say stop, we stop. I find who poisoned Lily, I make them pay. And in exchange, you give me 3 days. 3 days to complete this bond. 3 days to make you strong enough that no enemy can use you. 3 days to prove that the prophecy wasn't wrong." He held out his hand. Alara stared at it, at the choice being offered, at the point of no return. Then she placed her hand in his. 3 days, she whispered, and the ritual magic surged around them like a tidal wave, sealing the agreement, binding them together in ways Alara was only beginning to understand. The physical bonding began slowly. Theron was careful, almost painfully so. His hands shook slightly as he helped Alara out of her blood-stained washing dress, replacing it with a silk robe so thin it barely qualified as clothing. His eyes tracked every movement she made, possessive and hungry but controlled. "The bond will guide us," he explained, his voice rougher than before. "Your wolf will know what to do, even if you don't. Trust your instincts." Alara's wolf had been silent since the marking, overwhelmed, perhaps, by the sudden influx of alpha power and mate bond sensations. But now, as Theron's hands skimmed over her shoulders, her wolf stirred. "Mate," her wolf whispered. "Ours, claim, complete." The instincts were primal, undeniable, and with the ritual magic amplifying everything, Alara found her fear slowly giving way to something else. Not desire, not exactly, but need. The need to complete what they'd started, to seal the bond, to stop existing in this liminal space between claimed and mated. Theron's hands cupped her face, tilting her head back. His silver eyes searched hers, looking for something. "Your eyes," he said suddenly. "They're changing." Alara blinked. "What?" "Look." He turned her toward a mirror on the far wall. She hadn't even noticed it before. Alara's reflection stared back at her, and her eyes, plain brown eyes she'd had her whole life, were no longer entirely brown. Silver threaded through the irises like veins of starlight, glowing faintly in the moonlight. "What's happening to me?" Panic spiked through her. The bond is revealing your true heritage. Theron's voice carried wonder. Those silver threads, they only appear in wolves with alpha bloodlines. Strong ones. That's impossible. I'm an orphan. I have no bloodline. Sister Marin always said. Sister Marin was wrong. Theron's hands tightened on her shoulders, turning her to face him. The ritual magic doesn't lie. It reveals truth. And your truth is that someone lied about your heritage. Someone wanted you to believe you were nobody. The implications crashed over Elara like a physical blow. The prophecy, she whispered. An orphan with no pack, no name, no lineage. But what if that was a lie? What if I do have lineage? And someone hid it? Someone who knew about the prophecy and wanted to control when it came true? Theron's expression went deadly cold. Someone who poisoned Lily to force your hand. Someone who's been watching you your whole life, waiting for the moment when you'd be desperate enough to offer yourself. But who? Why? That's what we're going to find out. His hand slid down to her waist, pulling her against him. But first we complete the bond. Make you strong enough to face whatever truth is waiting. Because if your heritage was hidden, if you actually have alpha bloodline, his silver eyes met hers, intense, then you're not just my mate. You're potentially one of the most powerful wolves in the kingdom, and someone went to a lot of trouble to make sure you never knew it. The room seemed to spin. Elara wasn't just an orphan. She had heritage, real heritage, alpha heritage. Someone had hidden it. Hidden her. Made her believe she was worthless when she might actually be powerful. The rage that flooded through her was so intense the floating candles flared bright, some of them winking out entirely. Who would do that? Elara's voice came out as a growl, not human, but wolf. Who would steal someone's entire identity? Someone who feared what you'd become if you knew the truth. Theron's hands gentled on her waist, grounding her. Someone who needed you weak, controllable, invisible, until the exact moment when the prophecy required you to step forward. And now that you have. His smile was sharp and cold. Now that you're marked as my mate, revealed as alpha-blooded, about to become queen, whoever's been controlling you just lost their grip. They'll come after me. They'll try. Theron's arms wrapped around her fully, protective and possessive. But they'll have to go through me first. And I've been waiting 12 years for someone worth protecting. Through the bond, Elara felt the truth of it, the fierce determination, the possessive need, the promise that whoever had manipulated her life would pay in blood. She should have been frightened. Instead, she felt something unfamiliar and powerful stirring in her chest. Hope. Maybe she wasn't just a pawn. Maybe, with Theron and the mate bond and her apparently not-nothing heritage, she could be a player instead. Complete the bond, Elara said, her voice stronger now. Make me powerful enough to fight back. Theron's smile was predatory and approving. Now you're thinking like my queen. And as he guided her down onto the silk-covered bed, as the ritual magic swirled around them, as the physical bonding began in earnest, Elara felt her old identity as worthless orphan start to crack and break away, revealing something underneath that had been hidden for far too long. Something strong. Something alpha. Something that whoever had poisoned Lily was going to deeply, deeply regret awakening. Chapter 5. Blood memory. The pain came at dawn. Elara woke screaming, her body arching off the bed as if lightning had struck her spine. Every nerve ending felt like it was on fire, burning from the inside out. Through the bond, she felt Theron's instant alarm, his hands on her shoulders trying to ground her. Elara, what's wrong? Talk to me. But she couldn't talk. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't do anything except endure as something ancient and powerful tore through her mind like a hurricane. Images flooded her consciousness, not her memories, but someone else's. Older, deeper. Blood memories carried in her very DNA, surfacing now that the mate bond had unlocked them. A woman with silver-threaded eyes standing in a moonlit clearing, power radiating from her like heat from the sun, pack wolves bowing before her. A crown of white flowers in her midnight hair. You are the last of the nightshade bloodline. Someone was saying, an old healer with kind eyes. The moon goddess herself blessed your line with power and prophecy. Never forget what you are, child. Never let them make you small. But then the scene shifted, darkened. Fire. Screaming. Wolves tearing into each other with savage fury. The blood wars at their peak. kingdoms burning. The silver-eyed woman, older now, heavily pregnant, running through darkness. Being hunted. Fear making her movements clumsy as she cradled her swollen belly. They'll kill her, she gasped to someone hidden in shadow. If they find out about the prophecy, if they discover she's meant to be the queen who ends their power, they'll kill my daughter before she's even born. Then we hide her. The shadowed figure replied. Voice male. Authoritative. Heartbroken. We break the bloodline bonds. Make her forgettable. Invisible. An orphan with no heritage. They'll never look for alpha power in an abandoned child. It will hurt her. The pregnant woman's hands trembled on her belly. She'll spend her whole life thinking she's worthless. Thinking she's nothing. She'll be alive. That's all that matters. Magic dark, binding, painful, wrapping around the unborn child, severing connections, hiding power, creating a perfect disguise of ordinariness that would last decades. Forgive me, little one, the silver-eyed woman whispered, tears streaming down her face. Forgive me for making you invisible. But someday when the time is right, when you're safe and protected, the truth will wake. And you'll understand why I had to hide you. Then she was running again, still pregnant, still hunted, and the memory fractured into chaos and blood, and, Elara, come back. Theron's voice cut through the visions like a knife. Elara gasped, her consciousness snapping back to the present. She was on the bed, Theron's arms around her, her entire body shaking with aftershocks. What? Her voice came out hoarse, broken. What was that? Blood memory. Theron's face was pale, his silver eyes wide with shock. The mate bond triggered it. Unlock something that was sealed in your DNA. What did you see? Elara tried to speak, but her throat closed up. Instead, she reached for him through the bond, sharing the images, the memories, the revelation that had just torn her world apart. She felt Theron's shock mirror her own. Nightshade, he breathed. You're from the Nightshade bloodline. I don't understand. What's the Nightshade bloodline? Theron pulled back enough to look at her properly, his expression a mixture of awe and horror. The Nightshade pack was one of the 3 ruling bloodlines before the Blood Wars. They were prophets, seers, blessed by the moon goddess with the ability to read fate itself. But they were slaughtered, every single one, when the wars started, because their prophecies threatened the old regime's power. Every single one, Elara repeated. That's what everyone thought. Theron's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. But clearly someone survived. Your mother. She went into hiding, pregnant with you. And she used blood magic to hide your heritage, to make you invisible, unremarkable, safe from whoever was hunting her line. The pieces were falling into place, each one more horrifying than the last. The prophecy, Elara whispered. The one about the orphan queen who would offer herself for love. That wasn't just any prophecy. That was a Nightshade prophecy. My bloodline created it. More than that. Theron's grip tightened on her. If you're Nightshade, if you carry their seer blood, then you're not just prophesied to be queen. You're prophesied because you're the only one who can stop whatever threat the old regime poses. Your mother knew it. That's why she hid you. But she failed. Bitterness flooded Elara's mouth. Whoever was hunting the Nightshades found out about the prophecy anyway. They've been watching me my whole life, controlling me, waiting for the moment when I'd fulfill it. And when the time was right, they poisoned Lily to force my hand. Which means they know what you are. Theron stood abruptly, beginning to pace. They know you're Nightshade. They know the prophecy. And they've been manipulating events to ensure you became my mate, at exactly the moment they wanted. Why? Elara pulled her knees to her chest, trying to process everything. If they know I'm dangerous to them, why not just kill me? Why go through this elaborate scheme to make me queen? Because of the prophecy itself. Theron stopped pacing, his face grim. The Nightshade seers didn't just predict, they shaped fate. Their prophecies were self-fulfilling because they had the power to make them come true. If your bloodline prophesied that you'd become queen, that you'd mate with the Alpha King who ended the Blood Wars, that you'd be the key to destroying the old regime's power. He met her eyes. Then killing you wouldn't stop it. Someone else would rise to fulfill the role. The only way to control a Nightshade prophecy is to control the prophet. Understanding crashed over Elara like ice water. They want to control me. Use me. Make sure that when the prophecy comes true, I'm their weapon instead of their destruction. Exactly. Theron moved back to the bed, sitting beside her. That's why they kept you weak, isolated, convinced you were worthless. That's why they waited until now, until you were desperate and vulnerable to force you into my life. They think they can manipulate you. Use your bond with me to control the throne itself. But they didn't count on one thing, Alara said slowly. What? You. She turned to face him fully. They assumed you'd be like every other alpha, proud, controlling, treating your mate like property. They didn't expect you to actually care, to want honesty instead of submission, to give me power instead of taking it away. Theron's expression softened. I told you. I've been waiting 12 years for someone real. I'm not going to waste that by turning you into a puppet, even knowing I'm Nightshade, even knowing my bloodline can see fate and shape prophecies. That doesn't scare you? Terrifies me, Theron admitted. Having a mate who can potentially predict my death or manipulate destiny itself? That's nightmare fuel for any alpha. His hand found hers, lacing their fingers together. But you know what terrifies me more? Losing the first person in 12 years who looks at me and sees Theron instead of Alpha King. So yes, you're Nightshade. Yes, you're dangerous. And yes, we're going to figure out how to use that power to destroy whoever's been manipulating you. Through the bond, Alara felt the truth of it, the fear, yes, but also the determination, the possessive need to protect, the growing realization that his lonely existence had finally found meaning. She squeezed his hand. I don't know how to be Nightshade. The blood memories showed me power, but I don't know how to access it. I don't even know if I can. Then we'll figure it out together. Theron pulled her close again, his chin resting on top of her head. But first, we finish the completion ritual, make the bond strong enough that no one can break it or use it against us. We have 2 more days in these chambers, 2 more days before we have to face whatever's waiting out there. Alara nodded against his chest. But even as she agreed, another blood memory flickered at the edge of her consciousness, fainter than the first, but no less urgent. The silver-eyed woman, her mother dying in a pool of blood. Not from battle wounds, but from poison. The same dark purple liquid that had nearly killed Lily. Find the wolf with amber eyes, she gasped with her last breath. Find them before they find you. They're the one who... The memory cut off abruptly, leaving Alara with nothing but that cryptic warning. Amber eyes. Somewhere in the kingdoms, there was a wolf with amber eyes who'd been involved in her mother's death, who might be the same person orchestrating everything now. What is it? Theron felt her tension through the bond. Another memory? My mother. Alara's voice shook. She was poisoned. With Widow's kiss. The same poison used on Lily. Theron went very still. When? I don't know. The memory didn't have dates. But before she died, she said to find the wolf with amber eyes. That they were the one who... Alara's throat tightened. The memory ended before she could finish. Amber eyes. Theron's mind was clearly racing, connecting pieces. That's rare. Most wolves have brown, green, or blue eyes. Silver marks alpha bloodlines. But amber. He frowned. I know 3 wolves with amber eyes. One is my head of security, completely loyal, been with me since my father's death. One is a councilwoman from the Eastern Territories. And one is... He stopped abruptly. What? Alara pulled back to look at him. Who's the third? Theron's expression had gone cold, dangerous. My father's former advisor. Councilman Wren. He disappeared right after my father was poisoned. Everyone assumed he fled because he felt guilty for not preventing the death. But what if... His jaw clenched. What if he was involved? What if the same person who killed my father also killed your mother? The implications were staggering. If true, it meant the conspiracy went back decades to before Alara was even born. Someone with amber eyes had been systematically destroying bloodlines, killing alpha kings, manipulating prophecies. We need to find him, Alara said. We will. Theron's voice carried lethal promise. But carefully. If Councilman Wren has been orchestrating this for 20 years, he's powerful, connected, and very dangerous. We can't move against him until we're certain, until we have proof. Until... A loud knock interrupted him. Both of them froze. No one was supposed to disturb a completion ritual. The doors were locked, the chambers sealed with magic. For someone to knock meant, "Sire." Cade's voice came through the door, urgent and strained. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's an emergency. The orphanage in Crescent Hollow is under attack." Ilara's heart stopped. Lily. She was off the bed, and at the door, before Theron could stop her, yanking at the bolt. But the magic held firm. 3 days, the ritual required. They couldn't leave until it was complete. "Cade!" She shouted through the door. "What's happening? Is Lily safe?" "I don't know." The beta's voice was tight with worry. "We received word 10 minutes ago. Unknown wolves attacked during the night. They're looking for something or someone. 2 of your guards are dead. The physician is injured. And the child. What about the child?" Ilara's voice came out as a snarl, her wolf surging forward. "Missing. Lily's gone." The world tilted. Ilara felt Theron's hands on her shoulders, steadying her, but it didn't help. Nothing helped. Lily, brave, fierce, beautiful Lily who defended her and believed in her, was gone. Taken. Possibly dead. "Send everyone." Theron commanded through the door. "Every available guard. Every tracker. Every resource we have. Find that child. And find out who attacked the orphanage." "Already done, sire. But there's more." Cade hesitated. "The attackers left a message, carved into the orphanage wall. It said, 'The prophecy's price is paid in blood. Return what you stole, or the child dies.'" Silence. Then Theron's arms wrapped around Ilara as her knees buckled. "They took her," Ilara whispered, her voice breaking. "They took her to get to me, to force me to what? Return what I stole? I haven't stolen anything." "They mean your heritage." Theron's voice was hard as stone. "They want you to give up your nightshade power, to let them seal it away again, make you controllable, and they're using Lily as leverage." "Then I'll do it." Ilara turned in his arms, meeting his silver eyes. "I'll give them whatever they want. I don't care about prophecies or power or bloodlines. I care about Lily. She's 7 years old and she's terrified, and if you surrender to them, they'll kill you both." Theron's grip tightened. "You and the child. That's what they do, eliminate threats. The message is a trap. I don't care. I have to try. I have to." "You can't." His voice carried alpha command now, making her wolf whimper with the need to submit. "The ritual isn't complete. We're sealed in these chambers for 2 more days. If we try to leave before then, the incomplete bond will tear us both apart. We'd die screaming before we reached the orphanage." The truth of it hit Ilara like a physical blow. She was trapped, locked in these chambers while Lily was out there, taken, terrified, possibly dying. Everything she'd sacrificed for the mate bond, the marking, agreeing to become queen, all of it was for nothing if Lily died anyway. "Then break the bond," Ilara said desperately. "End the ritual. Let me go save her." "I can't." Pain flashed across Theron's face. "The bond is already too deep. Breaking it now would kill us both. The magic doesn't allow for reversal once the physical bonding has occurred. Then I'll be saving her." Ilara shoved against his chest, fury and desperation making her strong. "Better that than living knowing I let another child die because I was too weak, too trapped, too—" "You're not weak." Theron caught her hands, holding tight even as she fought him. "You're the strongest person I've ever met. But rushing into a trap won't save her. It'll just give them 2 victims instead of 1. Then what do we do?" Tears streamed down Ilara's face. "How do I save her?" Theron pulled her close, one hand cradling the back of her head. Through the bond, she felt his own rage, his helplessness, his desperate search for solutions. "We trust my people," he said finally. "Cade is the best tracker in 5 kingdoms. If anyone can find Lily, he can. And in the meantime—" He pulled back to look at her. "We finish the ritual. Fast. Complete the bond in 2 days instead of 3. It'll be painful, dangerous, pushing the magic that hard might break us. But if we succeed, you'll be strong enough to face whoever took her. Strong enough to use your nightshade power. I don't know how to use it. Then we'll figure it out. Together." His forehead pressed against hers. 2 days, Ilara. Give me 2 days to make you powerful enough to save her. Can you do that? It went against every instinct. Every fiber of her being screamed to run, to fight, to tear down these chamber walls and hunt until she found Lily. But the rational part of her brain, the part that had learned survival through years of calculated patience, knew Theron was right. Rushing in blind and powerless would only get them both killed. 2 days, Alara whispered. Then we find whoever took her, and we make them pay. In blood, Theron agreed, his voice carrying dark promise. And as Cade's footsteps retreated from the door, as Alara turned back toward the massive bed and the ritual that would either save them or destroy them, she felt something shift inside her. The nightshade power dormant for so long, hidden so carefully, was starting to wake, and when it fully emerged, when Alara learned to wield what her mother had died protecting, whoever had taken Lily would discover exactly why the old regime had been so terrified of the nightshade bloodline. Some wolves were meant to be invisible. Others were meant to be reckoning. Alara was done being invisible. The next 36 hours were agony. Theron pushed the ritual magic harder than was safe, harder than was recommended, harder than had ever been attempted in the 300 years these chambers had existed. The bond deepened with brutal speed, tearing through barriers and walls and carefully constructed defenses. Every hour, more blood memories surfaced. Alara watched her mother's life play out in fragments, the Nightshade Pack's destruction, the desperate flight while pregnant, the terrible choice to hide her daughter's power. She learned prophecies that had been lost for decades. She saw the faces of wolves who'd participated in the bloodline massacres. And she saw amber eyes, again and again, in memory after memory, watching, calculating, orchestrating. Councilman Wren had been there. At every crucial moment. Every betrayal. He was my father's closest advisor, Theron said during one of their brief rest periods, his voice hollow. I trusted him like an uncle, and all along he was planning. Alara finished. She was exhausted, her body aching from the accelerated ritual, but her mind had never been clearer. Planning to destroy any bloodline that threatened his power. Your father ended the blood wars that threatened Wren's allies in the old regime. My mother's prophecies predicted his downfall, so she had to die. And now you and I, bonded through prophecy, represent everything he's worked decades to prevent. So he takes Lily to force your hand, make you surrender your power, or to draw us out. Alara met Theron's eyes. What if the kidnapping isn't just about me? What if it's about getting you away from the capital? Away from your guards and resources? With you distracted, trying to rescue a child he could stage a coup, Theron finished grimly. Take the throne while I'm vulnerable. The pieces were falling into place. A conspiracy 20 years in the making, all building to this moment. We need to finish the ritual, Alara said. Now. Today. Before he makes his move. Theron studied her. You're not ready. Pushing it this hard has already damaged you. I can feel it through the bond. Your body is breaking down from the magical strain. I don't care. Alara stood, swaying slightly. Lily doesn't have time for me to care. Finish it. Make me strong enough to fight. Alara, do it. Her voice came out alpha hard, and Theron's eyes widened. Because that wasn't just command, that was power. Real. Undeniable. Nightshade alpha power finally surfacing. For a moment, Theron just stared. Then slowly, deliberately, he smiled. There she is, he said softly. There's my queen. If Alara's transformation moved you, subscribe so you never miss a story about hidden power finally waking. Stories like these deserve an audience that understands what it means to be underestimated. Comment. What would you do if you discovered your entire life had been a lie designed to keep you weak? Chapter 6. The Queen's Awakening. The final phase of the completion ritual began at midnight. Alara knelt in the center of the chamber, surrounded by a circle of those floating candles that had burned for 2 days straight. Her body was covered in ritual marks, silver paint that Theron had carefully applied to her skin, following patterns older than the kingdom itself. The marks glowed in the moonlight, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Theron knelt across from her, similarly marked, his silver eyes blazing with power and concern. Last chance to slow down, he said quietly. We can take another day. Let your body recover before. No more waiting. Alara's voice was steady, despite the exhaustion weighing on every muscle. Lily's been missing for almost 2 days. Every hour we delay is another hour she's terrified. Another hour closer to whatever Councilman Wren has planned. Through the bond, she felt Theron's reluctant acceptance. He knew she was right. Knew that despite the danger, despite the magical strain that was slowly tearing her apart from the inside, they were out of time. Then we finish it. Theron extended his hands across the circle. But Alara, this last part is going to hurt worse than anything you've ever experienced. The mate bond will fully merge our souls. Our wolves will become intertwined. You'll feel everything I am, and I'll feel everything you are. No barriers. No shields. Complete vulnerability. I understand. And when your nightshade power fully wakes, when the blood magic hiding it finally breaks, it's going to be overwhelming. You'll have access to prophecies, to fate reading, to power that's been dormant your entire life. It might. He hesitated. It might destroy your mind if you're not careful. Alara met his eyes steadily. Then you'll have to anchor me. Keep me sane. That's what a mate bond is for, right? To balance each other. In theory. Theron's grip tightened on her hands. But no Alpha King has ever bonded with a nightshade before. We're in uncharted territory. Good. Alara's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I'm tired of following paths other people laid out. Let's make our own. Pride flickered through the bond, fierce and warm. Theron leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers. Whatever happens, he said softly. Whatever you become when that power wakes, you're still mine. Still my mate. Still the stubborn orphan who crashed my moon trial covered in blood. Don't lose that, Alara. Don't let the prophecies and power erase who you actually are. The words touched something deep in Alara's chest. Because he was right, there was a danger here. Not just physical, but existential. The Nightshade bloodline had been so powerful, so consumed by prophecy and fate reading, that they'd lost touch with their own humanity. Her mother's blood memories showed it clearly. Seers who could predict every event but couldn't feel simple joy. Prophets who shaped kingdoms but couldn't love their own children. Is that what she'd become? A vessel for power with no self left inside? I won't forget, Alara promised. I won't forget Lily, or the orphanage, or what it felt like to be invisible and powerless. That's who I am. That's the truth underneath all the hidden bloodlines and prophecies. Then hold on to that truth. Theron's hands tightened on hers. No matter what the magic shows you, no matter what the power offers, stay yourself. I will. Promise me. I promise. The words sealed something between them, not just ritual magic, but genuine connection. Two people choosing each other despite impossible circumstances, despite prophecies and politics and blood-soaked histories. Ready? Theron asked. Alara took a deep breath. Ready. Theron began to speak, not in the common tongue, but in the old language. Words of power that made the air itself vibrate. The ritual marks on their skin flared brighter. The candle's flames stretched toward the ceiling, and the moon overhead seemed to descend closer, pressing down with divine weight. The mate bond, already deep, suddenly went deeper. Alara gasped as Theron's consciousness slammed into hers, not invading, not violent, but merging. She felt his memories flooding through her. 12 years of lonely rule, the night his father died, battles fought and won, the endless parade of false smiles and political betrayals. She felt his fears that he'd never be enough, never be good enough to deserve the throne his father had died to give him. And she felt his love. It wasn't the desperate possession from before. It was something quieter, harder won. He loved her stubbornness, her reckless courage, the way she'd looked at him in that moon trial circle and seen a person instead of a crown. He loved that she'd crashed into his carefully controlled life, like a hurricane, and forced him to feel something real again. The realization made Alara's chest ache. Because through the bond, Theron was feeling her memories too. Her childhood in the orphanage, the endless rejection, Sister Marin's cruelty, the nights crying into her pillow, the moment she'd found Lily coughing blood, the terror of offering herself in the moon trial, certain she'd be rejected and humiliated. And underneath it all, the secret truth she'd never admitted even to herself. She'd wanted to matter, wanted to be seen, wanted proof that her existence meant something. You matter. Theron's voice echoed through the bond. You've always mattered. The world just wasn't ready to see it yet. Tears streamed down Alara's face. I'm scared. I know. So am I. What if I can't control the power? What if I become something terrible? Then I'll bring you back. His mental voice was absolute certainty. That's what mates do. We save each other. The bond pulsed, sealing their souls together so completely that Alara couldn't tell where she ended and Theron began. They were separate people but also one entity, two halves of a whole, balanced and complete. And then the blood magic broke. Pain exploded through Alara's body like lightning through water. Every nerve ending ignited. Every cell in her body seemed to tear apart and reassemble. The magical seal her mother had placed on her, the one that had hidden her nightshade heritage for 23 years, shattered like glass. Power flooded in. Not gradually, not gently, but in a tsunami that threatened to drown her consciousness entirely. Suddenly, Alara could see not just with her eyes, but with something deeper. She saw the threads of fate stretching out from this moment, branching into infinite possibilities. She saw futures that might be Lily rescued and safe, Lily dead in a shallow grave, Councilman Wren triumphant on a stolen throne, Councilman Wren's head on a pike, kingdoms burning, kingdoms thriving, herself as queen, powerful and terrible, herself dead, another failed prophecy. The visions came faster, overlapping, contradicting, overwhelming, past and present, and future, tangling together, until Alara couldn't distinguish between what was, what is, and what might be. She saw her mother's death, not memory now, but reality, playing out in perfect clarity. The silver-eyed woman running through darkness, heavily pregnant, being hunted by wolves with amber eyes leading them. Councilman Wren, younger but recognizable, cornering her in a cave. You should have stayed dead with the rest of your bloodline, Wren said coldly. My daughter will destroy you. Alara's mother gasped. I've seen it. The prophecy is absolute. She'll be queen. She'll mate the Alpha King who ended your wars, and she'll tear down everything you've built. Then I'll make sure she never knows what she is. Wren held up a vial of dark purple liquid widow's kiss. I'll hide her power so deep she'll live and die believing she's nobody. And when the time is right, when the prophecy demands she step forward, I'll control her, use her, turn your daughter into the weapon that destroys everything the Nightshade stood for. You can't control prophecy. Watch me. He forced the poison down her throat. And as Alara's mother died, Wren stole the newborn infant from her arms. Baby Alara, minutes old, already having her heritage ripped away. The vision shifted, showing what came after. Wren leaving the infant on the orphanage doorstep with careful anonymity. Planting Sister Marin in the orphanage not as a cruel nun, but as his spy, his agent, ensuring the Nightshade child stayed broken and controllable. Years passing. Wren watching from shadows as Alara grew up believing she was worthless. Celebrating every time Sister Marin crushed her spirit a little more. Pleased that the prophecy was being delayed, controlled, shaped to his advantage. And then, when Theron reached 12 years unmated, when the prophecy's timeline demanded the Orphan Queen step forward, Wren poisoning Lily. Not random. Not coincidence. Deliberate manipulation to force Alara into the moon trial, at exactly the moment that would give him maximum advantage. The truth crystallized with devastating clarity. Sister Marin wasn't just cruel. She was Wren's creature, planted specifically to keep Alara weak. Lily's poisoning wasn't random violence. It was calculated manipulation. And even now, even with Lily kidnapped, and Alara locked in ritual chambers, it was all part of Wren's plan. Because while Theron was distracted, while his strongest ally was sealed away, completing a mate bond, Wren was making his move in the capital. The vision shifted again, showing the present moment. The royal palace, hundreds of miles away. Wren standing before the High Council, guards loyal to him surrounding the chamber. The Alpha King has abandoned his duties, Wren announced. Locked himself away for a mate bond with some common orphan, while our enemies gather strength. He's weak. Compromised. Unfit to rule. Murmurs of agreement from council members he'd carefully positioned over decades. I invoke the right of challenge, Wren continued. When the Alpha King returns, if he returns, I will face him for the throne. And when I win, this kingdom will have strong leadership again. leadership that isn't distracted by prophecies and orphan queens. The vision fractured, showing multiple possible futures branching from this moment, but in most of them, Alara saw blood, war. Ren on the throne with Lily's small body discarded like garbage, Theron dead, the kingdoms burning. No. Alara's scream tore through the ritual chamber, her power exploding outward in a shockwave that shattered half the floating candles. The silver marks on her skin blazed so bright they burned, and her eyes when she opened them were no longer just brown threaded with silver. They were pure silver, glowing, ancient, nightshade eyes that could see through lies and into the heart of fate itself. Theron caught her as she swayed, his arms wrapping tight. Through the bond she felt his shock at her transformation, his awe at the power radiating from her. "What did you see?" he demanded. "Everything." Alara's voice came out different, layered, harmonics that shouldn't be possible from a human throat. The nightshade power was speaking through her. "I saw how my mother died, how Ren has been controlling my entire life, how he poisoned Lily not to hurt her but to use her as leverage against us. Where is she? Can you see where they're keeping her?" Alara focused, letting the visions flow. They're a flash of awareness, a thread of fate still bright and burning. She's alive. Being held in the old fortress, the ruins near the eastern border. Ren's using her as bait, trying to draw us out. But that's not the real threat. She gripped Theron's arms. He's in the capital right now. He's invoking the right of challenge. He's going to try to take your throne. Theron's expression went deadly cold. "How long do we have?" "The challenge doesn't take effect until you return to the palace." Alara's nightshade sight showed her the threads clearly now. "But the longer we delay, the more council members he sways to his side. By the time we arrive, he might have enough support that even if you win the physical challenge, you'll lose the political one. Then we leave. Now." Theron pulled her to her feet. "The ritual is complete. The bond is sealed. We're no longer trapped by the chamber magic. But Lily, we'll send Cade and my best warriors to the old fortress. They'll rescue her while we handle Ren." Theron's hands cupped her face, forcing her to focus past the visions still swirling in her consciousness. "I know you want to save her yourself. But you're queen now, Alara. You have responsibilities beyond one child. You have a kingdom to protect." The words hurt because they were true. Alara could see the branching futures clearly. If she went to rescue Lily personally, she might save the child but lose the kingdom. Ren would seize the throne in their absence. Thousands would die in the resulting civil war. But if she trusted Cade, if she went straight to the capital to face Ren, Lily had a strong chance of survival and the kingdom stayed intact. It was the kind of impossible choice rulers had to make, the kind of decision that would haunt her either way. "I hate this," Alara whispered. "I know." Theron pressed his forehead to hers. "But that's what makes you a good queen. A tyrant wouldn't agonize over the choice. They'd sacrifice the child without thought. You're better than that." Through the bond, Alara felt his own turmoil, the guilt of asking her to choose, the knowledge that being Alpha King meant making terrible decisions daily, the hope that she'd be strong enough to bear it. She took a shaky breath and pulled back, meeting his eyes. "Send Cade to the old fortress. Send him with your best trackers, your best fighters. Tell him that if Lily dies, I'll never forgive any of us." Her voice steadied, the nightshade power lending her strength. "And we go to the capital. We face Ren. We end this conspiracy that's been poisoning our kingdoms for 20 years. Pride flooded through the bond. "Now you sound like my queen." "I am your queen." Alara's eyes blazed silver. "And before this is over, Councilman Ren is going to deeply regret the day he decided to make me a pawn in his game." Because she could see it now, the future where she won. Where her nightshade power combined with Theron's alpha strength created something unstoppable. Where prophecy and fate aligned not to destroy her, but to make her the weapon that finally ended the old regime's corruption. It was possible. The thread was there, bright and shining. All she had to do was be brave enough and ruthless enough to follow it. They left the summer palace at dawn. Alara wore armor now instead of silk robes, black leather reinforced with silver, practical and protective. Her hair was braided back severely, and at her hip hung a blade she was still learning to use. She looked nothing like the blood-stained orphan who'd crashed the moon trial 3 days ago. She looked like a queen preparing for war. Theron rode beside her, equally armed, his face set in grim determination. Behind them came his personal guard, 20 of his best warriors, loyal beyond question. Cade had already left hours before, racing toward the old fortress, with half the available forces. Before departing, he'd knelt before Elara, his scarred face solemn. "I'll bring her back," he'd promised. "The child will be safe. You have my word." Elara had wanted to go with him so badly her entire body ached with it. But her nightshade sight showed the truth clearly. Lily's best chance of survival was with Cade's team moving fast and light. Elara's presence would slow them down, and worse, it would give Ren exactly what he wanted. So she'd forced herself to nod, to trust, to let Cade go save the child who'd believed in her when no one else did. And now she was riding toward the capital, toward a confrontation 20 years in the making, with power burning in her veins and prophecy guiding her path. "You're quiet," Theron observed as they rode. "I'm watching the future's branch." Elara's silver eyes were distant, seeing possibilities. "There are so many ways this goes wrong. So many threads where we fail. But there are also threads where we win." "Yes, then we follow those." Theron's hand found hers across the space between their horses. "Your nightshade. You can see fate. Use that power. Guide us to the future where we both survive and Ren pays for what he's done." It sounded simple when he said it like that. But prophecy wasn't simple. Elara was learning that fast. Every vision showed her possible outcomes, not certainties. Every decision created new branches, new possibilities. But there was one thread that ran through almost every future she saw, one constant that appeared again and again. The confrontation with Ren would require a sacrifice. Someone was going to die in the throne room. Someone close, someone important. The visions wouldn't show her who. Fate was being deliberately vague on that point, as if the universe itself hadn't decided yet. But blood would be spilled. That much was certain. Elara squeezed Theron's hand, saying nothing about the death she saw coming. Because what could she say? That stopping Ren would cost them someone they loved? That saving the kingdom meant losing someone irreplaceable? He'd insist on being the sacrifice. She could feel it through the bond, his alpha instinct to protect. His willingness to die if it meant keeping her safe. But Elara was done being protected. Done being the helpless orphan everyone underestimated. If there had to be a sacrifice, if fate demanded blood, then she'd make sure it was the right blood spilled. Not hers, not Theron's, not Lily's. Councilman Ren had spent 20 years manipulating her life, murdering her mother, poisoning children, and corrupting kingdoms. His thread of fate was going to end in that throne room. Elara would make absolutely certain of it. They reached the capital at sunset. The city sprawled across the valley like a jewel-white stone buildings with silver-tiled roofs. Streets crowded with wolves going about their evening business. And at the center of it all, the royal palace rising like a mountain of marble and moonlight. But something was wrong. Elara felt it immediately, her nightshade senses picking up on disturbances in fate's fabric. Too many guards at the palace gates wearing unfamiliar colors. Too many whispers in the streets. Too much tension crackling through the air like electricity before a storm. "He's already made his move," Theron said quietly, reading the same signs with his alpha senses. "The palace is under Ren's control." Not completely. Elara's silver eyes scanned the crowds, seeing threads of loyalty still intact. "Half the guards are still yours. Half the council still supports you. He's strong. But he doesn't have absolute power yet. Then we need to move fast. Before he consolidates his position." They rode through the streets, and the effect was immediate. People stopped and stared. Whispers spread like wildfire. "The Alpha King has returned. He brought the prophesied queen. The Nightshade bloodline lives." By the time they reached the palace gates, a crowd had gathered. "Open the gates." Theron's voice carried alpha command that made even the guards wearing Ren's colors flinch. "Your Alpha King returns to his throne. Anyone who stands in my way is a traitor and will be treated as such." For a long moment, no one moved. Then slowly, reluctantly, the gates began to open. Theron and Elara rode through, their guard following close behind. In the courtyard, more warriors waited, some loyal to Theron, some clearly aligned with Ren. The tension was thick enough to taste. "The council awaits in the throne room," a guard said nervously. "Councilman Ren invoked the right of challenge this morning. He says you've abandoned your duties. He says, I know what he says. Theron dismounted, helping Alara down. Tell the council their Alpha King will see them now, and someone better make sure Councilman Wren is present. We're going to settle this challenge. Tonight. The guard fled. Alara stood beside Theron, her hand resting on the blade at her hip. Through the bond, she felt his determination, his cold rage, his absolute certainty that Wren would answer for every crime. Whatever happens in that throne room, Theron said quietly, stay close to me. Don't let him separate us. Together, we're stronger than anything he can throw at us. Alara nodded, but her nightshade sight was already showing her flashes of what was coming. The throne room doors opening, Wren's amber eyes burning with hatred, the moment when everything would explode into violence. And the sacrifice. Always the sacrifice. Someone dying to end this. Please, Alara prayed to the moon goddess who'd started all this with prophecy. Please let the right person die. Please let it be worth it. Then she straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and walked beside her mate toward the throne room where destiny waited. The orphan girl who'd offered herself to save a child was gone. In her place walked a queen with silver eyes and prophecy burning in her veins. And Councilman Wren was about to learn what happened when you turned a nightshade into a weapon. Sometimes, weapons cut the hand that forged them. Chapter 7. The Throne Room Reckoning. The throne room doors opened with a sound like thunder. Alara stepped through beside Theron, her silver eyes immediately cataloging everything. The High Council seated in a semicircle before the throne. 50 guards lining the walls, half wearing Theron's colors, half wearing Wren's, and at the center of it all, standing brazenly on the dais where only the Alpha King should stand, Councilman Wren. He was older than Alara expected. 70 at least, with silver streaking his dark hair and lines carved deep around his mouth from years of political smiles. But his eyes, those amber eyes from her visions, burned with an intelligence and malice that age hadn't dimmed. Alpha King Theron. Wren's voice carried across the room, dripping false concern. How gracious of you to finally return to your duties. We were beginning to think you'd forgotten you had a kingdom to rule. Murmurs rippled through the council. Some nodded agreement, clearly Wren's supporters. Others looked uncomfortable, torn. I haven't forgotten anything, Theron said coldly. He moved forward with lethal grace, Alara at his side, including that you're standing where you have no right to stand. The right of challenge gives me every right. Wren gestured to the throne behind him. You abandoned this seat for 3 days. 3 days locked away in ritual chambers while enemies gathered and children died. That's not leadership, Theron. That's negligence. The accusation hung in the air. Alara felt Theron's rage through the bond, carefully controlled but burning hot. Careful, Councilman, Theron said softly. You're treading very close to treason. Treason? Wren's laugh was sharp. I'm trying to save this kingdom from a king who's been bewitched by prophecy, who's bonded himself to some orphan girl with no pack, no lineage, no. I am Nightshade. Alara's voice cut through the throne room like a blade. Every eye turned to her. The guards shifted nervously. Even the council members who'd been muttering fell silent. Wren's expression didn't change, but Alara saw the flicker in his amber eyes, recognition, calculation, and underneath it all, fear. Nightshade, she repeated, stepping forward. Her silver eyes blazed in the torchlight. Daughter of the bloodline you spent 20 years trying to erase. The prophecy you murdered my mother to control. The weapon you tried to forge from an orphan's desperation. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Several council members stood abruptly. The Nightshades are extinct, one of them said, an elderly woman with sharp features. They were wiped out in the blood wars. Almost wiped out. Alara turned her gaze on the woman. Through her Nightshade sight, she could see the threads of fate connecting everyone in the room, and this councilwoman's thread ran straight to Wren, another one of his allies. But my mother survived. She went into hiding, pregnant with me, and when Councilman Wren hunted her down, when he poisoned her with widow's kiss, the same poison he used on a 7-year-old child 3 days ago, she had just enough time to seal away my power, hide me where he wouldn't look. These are wild accusations, Wren said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. The ravings of a girl overwhelmed by prophecy and mate bond magic. You have no proof. I have prophecy. Alara's voice took on that layered quality again, harmonics that made several guards drop to their knees instinctively. I have sight. I can see the threads of fate that connect you to every crime. I watched my mother die through blood memory. I saw you steal me from her corpse and leave me on the orphanage doorstep. I saw you plant Sister Marin as your spy, to keep me broken and controllable. The throne room erupted. Council members were shouting questions, guards drawing weapons, chaos spreading like wildfire. But through it all, Ren remained calm, too calm. Like he'd expected this. Like he'd planned for it. Even if what you say is true, Ren said loudly, cutting through the noise. Even if you are Nightshade, what difference does it make? The old seers were powerful, yes. But they were also mad, consumed by their visions until they couldn't tell reality from prophecy. Is that what you want ruling beside our Alpha King? A mad seer who sees threats in every shadow? Several council members nodded. Alara felt their doubt through the web of fate. Ren had positioned this perfectly. Made her power sound like madness instead of strength. She's not mad, Theron said, his voice cutting like steel. She's the sanest person in this room. Because unlike the rest of you, she sees clearly. She sees through the lies you've been feeding this council for 20 years. Lies. Ren's amber eyes gleamed. What lies, my king? I've served this throne faithfully since your grandfather's reign. I stood beside your father during the blood wars. I've given my life to this kingdom's prosperity. You gave your life to maintaining the old regime's power, Alara said. Her nightshade sight was showing her everything now, threads of corruption spreading from Ren like a spider's web. You didn't want the blood wars to end. You profited from them. And when Theron's father ended the wars anyway, you poisoned him. Made it look like an enemy attack so you could remain trusted, remain close, remain positioned to corrupt the next Alpha King. The throne room went deathly silent. Ren's expression finally cracked just for a moment. Rage and hatred bleeding through before he smoothed it away. Prove it, he said flatly. You claim to see fate, to know truth. Then prove I killed the former Alpha King. Prove I've done anything except serve loyally. It was a trap. Alara could see it in the branching futures. If she couldn't provide concrete proof, if her nightshade sight wasn't enough to convince the council, they'd dismiss her as mad. Dismiss Theron as bewitched. Give Ren the opening he needed to seize power legitimately. But if she pushed too hard, if she revealed too much of what she could see, she'd terrify them. Make them believe the old stories about nightshade seers going mad from their visions. Either way, Ren won. Unless she changed the game entirely. You're right, Alara said slowly. Prophecy isn't proof. Visions aren't evidence. So let me offer you something more concrete. She reached into her armor and pulled out a small vial, the one Dr. Aldrich had given her, the one containing the widow's kiss poison that had nearly killed Lily. This poison was used on a child in Crescent Hollow 3 days ago. Widow's kiss, a compound that hasn't been seen since the blood wars. My nightshade sight showed me who poisoned her, but you're right that visions aren't enough. Alara held up the vial. So I had my mate's royal alchemist analyze the compound. Do you want to know what he found? Ren said nothing, but his jaw tightened. He found a signature. Alara's voice was steel. Every alchemist leaves a unique signature in their compounds, trace elements specific to their workshop, their methods. And this poison's signature matched exactly with poison found in the former Alpha King's body after his death 12 years ago. The throne room erupted again, but this time with gasps of horror, instead of confusion. That's impossible, one council member breathed. The official investigation concluded that the poison came from the Eastern enemies. The official investigation was conducted by Councilman Ren, Theron interrupted, his voice deadly quiet. Who controlled what evidence was examined? Who shaped the narrative to protect himself? This proves nothing. Ren's composure was cracking now, rage bleeding through. Alchemical signatures can be forged. The Nightshade girl could have manufactured this evidence. Then let's test it properly, Alara said. She looked at the council. Ancient law allows for trial by truth. The accused and accuser both drink moon water blessed by a high priestess. Then they answer questions. The moon water makes lying impossible. Anyone who tries will collapse in agony. Several council members nodded. Trial by truth was old law, rarely invoked, but still legally binding. I'll submit to it, Alara continued. I'll drink the moon water and answer any question you ask. Will you do the same, Councilman Ren? The trap was perfect. If Ren refused, he'd look guilty. If he accepted and tried to lie, The moonwater would expose him. Either way, he lost unless he could find a way to overturn the trial itself. Ren's amber eyes flickered with calculation. Then slowly, he smiled. "I'll do better than that," he said. "I'll accept the trial by truth. But I want to add one more element to ensure complete fairness, to prove beyond doubt that the Nightshade girl isn't using her prophecy magic to manipulate the outcome." Alara's Nightshade sight suddenly flared with warning. She saw the threads shifting, saw the trap closing. "I invoke the right of blood challenge," Ren announced. "In addition to the trial by truth, I challenge Alpha King Theron to single combat. If he wins, I submit to the Moonwater trial. If I win..." His smile turned vicious. "I take the throne." And the Nightshade Witch burns for conspiracy against the crown. Horror flooded through Alara. She'd seen this or something like it in the branching futures. The moment when violence became inevitable. When words weren't enough and blood had to be spilled. But she hadn't seen this specific variation. Ren was cleverer than her visions had shown. He'd hidden his true plan behind multiple layers of deception. "You can't invoke both challenges simultaneously," one council member protested. "That's not legal. Ancient law allows it if the throne itself is in question," Ren countered. "And the throne is very much in question. Our Alpha King has been compromised by mate bond, magic, and prophecy. He needs to prove his strength, prove he's still capable of ruling. What better way than combat?" The council was murmuring, debating. Alara could see the threads of opinion shifting. Half thought Ren was right, that Theron needed to prove himself. Half thought this was a transparent power grab. But none of that mattered. Because through the bond, Alara felt Theron's response before he even spoke. "I accept," Theron said coldly. "Blood challenge and trial by truth both. We'll settle this the old way through strength and honesty. And when I win, Ren, you'll answer for every crime, every murder, every child you've hurt." "If you win," Ren corrected. His amber eyes gleamed with malicious confidence. "But you won't. You've been locked away for 3 days completing a mate bond. Your body is exhausted from ritual magic. Your mind is compromised by the Nightshade girl's visions. You're weak, Theron. And I'm going to prove it." Alara grabbed Theron's arm, pulling him close enough to whisper, "Don't do this. He's planned for this exact scenario. There's something wrong, I can see it in the futures, but the threads are tangled. He has an advantage we don't know about yet. I don't have a choice." Theron's voice was quiet but firm. "If I refuse the challenge, the council will see it as weakness. Ren will take the throne anyway, just through politics instead of combat. At least this way, I have a chance to end him. You're exhausted. The ritual magic drained you, I can feel it through the bond. You're not at full strength. Then I'll fight harder." His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. "Trust me, trust your visions. If there's a thread where we both survive this, where we win and Ren pays, follow that thread. Guide me through the fight." The idea was audacious. Using her Nightshade sight in real time during combat to predict Ren's moves. To guide Theron toward the future, where they won. It might work. Or it might drive her mad from the sensory overload. But looking at Theron's silver eyes, feeling his determination through the bond, Alara knew they were out of options. "The challenge is accepted." The High Priestess announced, an ancient wolf woman in white robes who'd been silent until now. "Blood challenge and trial by truth. As ancient law allows, the combat will take place immediately in the sacred ring. The winner faces the Moonwater trial afterward." Guards began moving, clearing the center of the throne room. Other guards dragged forward a massive iron ring 8 feet in diameter, inscribed with runes that glowed when they touched the floor. The sacred combat ring, used for challenges since the kingdom's founding. Ren stepped into the ring first, removing his formal robes to reveal fighting leathers underneath. Clearly he'd planned for this. He moved with the fluid grace of someone much younger, and Alara's Nightshade sight caught the truth. He'd been taking enhancement potions. Illegal alchemy that temporarily boosted strength and speed. That was his advantage. That was the trap. "He's enhanced," Alara whispered urgently to Theron. "Potions. He's faster and stronger than he should be. Then I'll be smarter." Theron shed his own coat, drawing the blade at his hip. "Keep watching the futures. Tell me which moves lead to victory." He stepped into the sacred ring. The high priestess raised her hands. Blood challenge rules. Fight until one combatant yields, dies, or is thrown from the ring. The moon goddess bears witness. Begin. Ren attacked immediately. He moved like lightning, faster than any 70-year-old should move, his blade flashing toward Theron's throat. Theron barely blocked in time, the impact driving him back 2 steps. Alara's nightshade sight exploded open, showing her branching futures. If Theron blocks left, neck's dead. Ren's second strike catches his ribs. If Theron dodges right, injured. Ren anticipated it, changes trajectory mid-swing. If Theron goes low, sweeps Ren's legs opening, 3 seconds of advantage. Low! Alara shouted. Sweep left leg. Theron moved instantly, trusting her completely. He dropped low and swept Ren's left leg with brutal force. The older wolf stumbled, and Theron's blade flashed up. Ren blocks high, counterattacks with knee to sternum. Theron's ribs crack. Block! Alara screamed. Theron's free hand came up just in time, catching Ren's knee before it connected. He shoved the councilman back, creating space. The council watched in tense silence. Guards lined the walls, hands on weapons. And Alara stood at the ring's edge, her silver eyes distant, watching futures branch and collapse and reform with every heartbeat. You're cheating, Ren snarled, circling. Using the Nightshade Witch to read my moves. No more than you're cheating with illegal enhancement potions, Theron countered. Prove it. I will, after I beat you. They clashed again, brutal, savage, each strike carrying killing intent. Alara called out warnings continuously, guiding Theron through the storm of violence. Right. High. Duck. Spin left. Her voice became his second set of instincts. When she said move, he moved. When she said strike, he struck. Together, they fought like one entity instead of two, the Prophet Queen and her Alpha King, perfectly synchronized. But the enhancement potions were powerful. Every time Theron landed a hit, Ren shrugged it off with inhuman endurance. Every time Ren connected, Theron staggered from the amplified force. And Alara could see the futures narrowing. The threads where they won were getting fewer, dimmer, harder to follow. The enhancement magic was too strong. Theron was too exhausted, they were losing. The sacrifice, her nightshade sight whispered. The death that's coming. Someone has to die to tip the balance. Alara's heart clenched. She could see the moment approaching, the split second when everything would hinge on a single choice. When someone's life would end to ensure the prophecy's completion. It was supposed to be Ren. That was the obvious answer, the righteous ending. But fate didn't work that way. Fate demanded balance, demanded payment. And looking at the futures, Alara saw the terrible truth. If Ren died here, in this ring, his supporters would claim foul play, would say Theron and Alara had cheated, had used nightshade magic unfairly. The council would fracture. Civil war would erupt. Lily would die in the chaos. So would thousands of others. But there was another thread. Thinner, barely visible, but there. A thread where Ren lived long enough to face the trial by truth. Where the moonwater forced him to confess every crime publicly, undeniably. Where he destroyed himself with his own words. Instead of dying a martyr's death, that thread, that future had one requirement. Someone else had to die in this ring. Someone had to sacrifice themselves to give Ren the opening he needed to win the combat. Someone whose death would shock everyone present, would create the chaos necessary for Ren to lower his guard just long enough for the trial by truth to proceed. Alara saw exactly who it had to be, and her heart shattered. Alara? Theron's voice came through the bond, strained from combat. What's wrong? The visions, they changed. What do you see? She saw the only way forward. She saw what the prophecy truly demanded. She saw the price of saving everyone she loved. In the sacred ring, Ren was gaining ground. Theron was slowing, his exhaustion finally overwhelming even Alara's guidance. One more minute, maybe two, and Ren would land a killing blow. Unless Alara changed the game. Unless she made the sacrifice that fate demanded. I see victory, Alara said through the bond, her mental voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. I see exactly how we win. Trust me. One more time, trust me. Always. Alara turned to the High Priestess. I invoke the right of intervention. Ancient law allows a mate to take her bonded's place in combat, if the challenge is deemed unfair. The throne room erupted in chaos again. That's not, Ren started. It is law, the high priestess confirmed, her ancient eyes suddenly sharp. If the challenged mate believes the combat was arranged through deception, through illegal enhancement, through conspiracy, she may invoke intervention. The combat resets with her as the challenger. She's not a warrior, one of Ren's supporters protested. She's barely been bonded 3 days. This is suicide. This is my right. Alara stepped forward, her silver eyes blazing. That's unfair advantage. I'm taking his place. If Ren wants the throne, he goes through me first. Theron's horror flooded through the bond. No. Alara, you can't. I can. I have to. She met his eyes across the ring. Through the bond. She showed him what she'd seen, the futures, the sacrifice, the only path to victory that saved everyone. Trust me. Please. Trust the prophecy. The prophecy says you become queen. Not that you die in a combat ring. The prophecy says I offer myself for love. Alara's voice was gentle. I did that once to save Lily. I'm doing it again now to save you. To save the kingdom. To save everyone from 20 more years of Ren's corruption. I won't let you. You don't have a choice. Alara turned to the high priestess. I invoke my right. Clear the ring. This is my challenge now. The ancient priestess studied her for a long moment. Then slowly, she nodded. The right of intervention is acknowledged. Alpha King Theron Silvercrest, you are removed from combat. Queen Alara Nightshade takes your place. She looked at Ren. Do you accept this challenge, councilman? Ren's amber eyes gleamed with malicious triumph. This was better than he'd hoped, easier than killing an Alpha King. Just a newly bonded queen with no combat training. I accept, he said, smiling. Gladly. Theron tried to move toward Alara, but guards held him back. Ritual law demanded it. Once intervention was invoked, the original combatant had to leave the ring. Alara, please. Theron's voice through the bond was broken. Please don't do this. I can't lose you. Not now. Not when I've finally found you. You won't lose me. Alara stepped into the ring, drawing the blade at her hip. She was a terrible fighter, she knew it. Ren knew it. Everyone watching knew it. But that wasn't the point. The point was the sacrifice. The point was creating the moment when fate could pivot. I love you, Alara said through the bond. I didn't realize it until now, but I do. You saw me when I was invisible. You made me matter. You gave me purpose. And I love you for it. Then don't leave me. Theron's mental voice was anguish. We'll find another way. There is no other way. The prophecy demands this. Fate demands this. Alara raised her blade, facing Ren across the sacred ring. But it's okay. Because I'm not afraid anymore. I know exactly what comes next. She looked at Ren, at the wolf with amber eyes who'd murdered her mother, poisoned children, corrupted kingdoms. And she smiled. Come on then, councilman. Let's finish this story you started 20 years ago. Let's see what happens when you finally face a nightshade who knows exactly what she is. The high priestess raised her hands. Let the challenge continue. Begin. Ren lunged, his blade flashing toward Alara's heart. And Alara didn't dodge. Chapter 8. The Prophet's Gambit. Ren's blade struck Alara's chest but not her heart. At the last possible moment, Alara twisted, taking the blow in her shoulder instead of her vital organs. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, white-hot agony that made her vision blur. Blood bloomed across her armor, dark and spreading. But she was still standing, and more importantly, she was exactly where she needed to be. Alara's hand shot out, grabbing Ren's wrist before he could pull back. Her silver eyes blazed with nightshade power, and suddenly she wasn't just seeing the future, she was seeing him. Every secret, every crime, every moment of corruption burned into his soul. You want to know what real prophecy looks like? Alara's voice carried that layered quality again, but stronger now. Louder, the voice of every nightshade seer who'd ever lived speaking through her. Let me show you. Power exploded from her touch. Not physical force, something deeper. Something that bypassed flesh and bone and struck directly at consciousness itself. Alara's nightshade gift tore through Ren's mental shields like paper, and suddenly everyone in the throne room could see what she saw. Images flooded the chamber. Not visions of possible futures, but memories. True memories ripped directly from Ren's mind and projected for all to witness. Ren standing over the former Alpha King's bed, holding a vial of widow's kiss. The great king gasping, dying, while Ren watched with cold satisfaction. "You ended my wars," Ren whispered to the dying man. "You destroyed everything I built. But your son, young, inexperienced Theron, he'll be easier to control. And when the prophecy comes true, when the Nightshade girl I've been hiding finally emerges, I'll use them both to rebuild the old regime's power." The Alpha King trying to speak, to warn someone, but the poison stealing his voice, his last sight, Ren's amber eyes, triumphant. The memory shifted, showing more. Ren finding Alara's mother in that cave, pregnant and desperate. Not just killing her, torturing her first, demanding to know every detail of the prophecy she'd seen. "Tell me how to control it." Ren snarled, his hands around her throat. "Tell me how to twist the prophecy to serve me instead of destroy me." Alara's mother, blood streaming from her mouth, still defiant. "You can't control prophecy, fool. You can only fulfill it. And my daughter will be your end. I've seen it. Every path, every future, Yudi screaming her name. Ren forcing the poison down her throat. Then I'll make sure she never knows what she is. Never knows her power. I'll keep her small and broken and under my control. And when the time comes, I'll use her to destroy everything the Nightshade stood for." More memories flashed through years of corruption, manipulation, murder, children poisoned to test toxins, council members blackmailed or killed, entire packs destroyed when they threatened his power, and always, watching from the shadows, as Alara grew up in the orphanage, checking periodically to ensure Sister Marin was keeping her sufficiently broken. The throne room was utterly silent now. Every person present was seeing the truth, undeniable, irrefutable truth pulled directly from Ren's own mind. Even his supporters stood frozen in horror. "No." Ren tried to pull away from Alara's grip, but she held firm despite the blood pouring from her shoulder. This is Nightshade trickery. Illusions. She's manipulating what you see. Blood doesn't lie." The High Priestess's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Her ancient eyes were fixed on the memories still playing out. "Nightshade seers can't fabricate memories, they can only reveal truth. What we're seeing is real. Everything she's showing us, it all happened." "She's dying," one of the council members shouted, pointing at Alara. "Someone help her, she's bleeding out." It was true. Alara could feel her strength fading, the wound in her shoulder deeper than she'd intended. The blade had nicked an artery. She had minutes at best before blood loss took her, but minutes were all she needed. "The trial by truth," Alara said, her voice weakening but still carrying. "I've shown you his crimes. Now let him deny them. Let him drink the moon water, and try to lie about what you've all witnessed." The High Priestess was already moving, producing a crystal vial from her robes. Moon water blessed by the moon goddess herself, impossible to lie under its influence. "Councilman Ren," the priestess said formally, "you stand accused of regicide, conspiracy, murder of bloodlines, and crimes against the throne. Under ancient law, you will now submit to trial by truth. Drink the moon water and answer the council's questions. If you refuse, you forfeit your challenge and your life." Ren looked around the throne room desperately. His supporters had backed away, horror and betrayal on their faces. The guards who'd worn his colors were removing them, stepping back to Theron's side. Even his most loyal followers couldn't deny what they'd seen, what Alara's Nightshade power had revealed. He was alone, exposed, defeated, but cornered wolves were the most dangerous. "If I'm going down," Ren snarled, "I'm taking you with me, you Nightshade witch." He yanked free from Alara's weakening grip and lunged not with his blade this time, but with his bare hands, reaching for her throat. Enhanced strength still flooding his muscles, murder in his amber eyes. Alara tried to dodge, but blood loss made her slow. She felt his hands close around her neck, felt pressure cutting off her air. Then Theron was there. He'd broken through the guards, violated ritual law, crossed the sacred ring in 3 massive strides. His hand caught Ren's throat from behind, lifting the older wolf off his feet like he weighed nothing. You made two mistakes, Theron said, his voice deadly calm despite the rage flooding through the bond. First, you touched my mate. Second, you made her bleed. Alpha power exploded around him, raw, primal, overwhelming. Not just his own strength but something more. The mate bond, fully completed and nightshade enhanced, had amplified his power beyond anything a normal alpha could achieve. Theron's hand tightened, and Ren made a horrible choking sound. Wait, the High Priestess called. He must face the trial by truth. The council must hear his confession. He just confessed, Theron growled. Through the memories. Through his own attempt to kill my mate in front of witnesses. What more do you need? Formal admission, one of the council members insisted. For the historical record. For legal precedent. He must drink the moon water and speak his crimes aloud, or his supporters will forever claim he was murdered unfairly. Theron looked ready to ignore them, to simply snap Ren's neck and be done with it. But through the bond, Alara sent him a pulse of agreement. They're right. Let him confess. Let everyone hear it from his own mouth. That's the only way to truly end his influence. Theron's jaw worked. Then, with obvious reluctance, he threw Ren to the floor at the High Priestess's feet. Drink the moon water, Theron commanded, his alpha voice absolute. Confess everything. Then I'll decide whether you die quickly or slowly. The High Priestess opened the vial and held it to Ren's lips. For a moment Alara thought he might refuse, might choose death over confession. But survival instinct won. Ren drank. The moon water took effect immediately. His eyes went glassy, his body rigid. Ancient magic wrapped around him like chains. Compelling truth. Your name, the High Priestess said formally. Councilman Ren Ashford. The words came out mechanical, unable to be stopped. Did you murder Alpha King Silvercrest 12 years ago? Yes. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Did you murder the Nightshade bloodline? Yes. I led the hunting parties. I killed them all. Men, women, children. Every seer who could predict my downfall. Did you poison the child called Lily in Crescent Hollow 3 days ago? Yes. To force the Nightshade girl into the moon trial. To control the prophecy's timing. Did you plan to assassinate Alpha King Theron and seize the throne? Yes. That was always the plan. Everything, every manipulation, every murder was to position myself as the power behind the throne. And when the prophecy forced Theron to mate the Nightshade girl, I'd use her to control him. Use their bond as a leash. The confessions kept coming, each one more damning than the last. Decades of conspiracy spilled out under the Moonwater's compulsion. By the time Ren finally fell silent, every person in the throne room looked ill. Is there anything else you wish to confess? The High Priestess asked. Ren's mouth twisted, fighting the compulsion, trying desperately to stay silent. But the Moonwater was absolute. I'm afraid, he whispered. I'm afraid of dying. Afraid of what comes after. I've done terrible things. Unforgivable things. And I'm afraid there's no redemption for someone like me. The admission was so human, so vulnerable, that for a moment silence reigned. Even after everything, after all the murder and manipulation and cruelty, Ren was still just a wolf who'd made terrible choices and was now facing their consequences. There isn't, Theron said quietly. You're right. Some things can't be forgiven. Some crimes are too vast for redemption. He looked at the High Priestess. The trial by truth is complete. The council has heard his confession. What's the verdict? The council members conferred briefly. Then the eldest among them, a gray-haired wolf with sad eyes, stood. Councilman Ren Ashford, you are found guilty of regicide, conspiracy, murder of bloodlines, and crimes against the throne. The sentence is death, immediate, no appeal. Ren sagged, the Moonwater's compulsion fading. He looked at Alara, still standing despite the blood loss, her silver eyes steady on him. The prophecy, he whispered. You knew. You saw this exact moment. You planned it all, letting me stab you, using your blood to amplify the Nightshade's sight, forcing me into the trial by truth. You sacrificed yourself to ensure I'd confess. Yes, Alara said simply. But you're dying. That wound is mortal. Even if you win, even if I die, you won't survive to see it. Ren laughed bitterly. So the prophecy kills us both. The Nightshade Queen destroys me but doesn't live to rule. That's the price fate demanded. Then, through the bond, Alara felt Theron's horror. He'd been so focused on stopping Ren, on getting the confession, that he hadn't fully registered how badly she was injured. Now he saw it, the blood pooling on the floor, the way Alara swayed on her feet, the paleness of her skin. No, Theron breathed. No, you're not dying. We'll get healers. There's no time, Alara said gently. Her vision was starting to blur at the edges. The artery wound is too deep. I have minutes, maybe less. Then I'm dying with you. Theron moved to her side, his arms wrapping around her. The mate bond, if you die, I die. That's how it works when the bond is this strong. We both knew that. I know. Alara leaned into his embrace, her strength finally failing. But that's okay. We won. Ren is defeated. His confession is recorded. The conspiracy is exposed. The kingdoms are safe. Lily will be rescued. I can see that future now, bright and certain. Cade reaches the old fortress in time. She lives. She gets to grow up free. I don't care about the kingdoms. Theron's voice broke. I care about you. We were supposed to have time. Years together. Not 3 days. I know. I'm sorry. Alara's hand came up to cup his face. But the prophecy was never about us living happily ever after. It was about ending Ren's corruption. About making sure the old regime's poison was finally purged from the kingdoms. That's what the Nightshade bloodline was for not ruling, but clearing the path so better rulers could emerge. You are a better ruler. You're wise and brave, and I'm dying. Alara smiled despite the pain. But you're not. And that's what matters. You'll keep ruling. You'll find another mate, eventually someone who can actually help you lead instead of just crashing into your life for 3 days and bleeding on your throne room floor. There is no one else. Theron was openly crying now, tears streaming down his face. The bond recognized you. My wolf recognized you. You're my mate. My only mate. If you die, I die. That's not negotiable. Through the bond, Alara felt the truth of it. The mate bond was too strong, too complete. When her heart stopped, his would follow within minutes. They'd both fulfilled the prophecy, and both pay its price. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt peaceful. They'd won. Ren was defeated. The kingdoms were safe. Lily would live. That was enough. Alara's legs gave out. Theron caught her, lowering them both to the floor. Around them, the throne room seemed to fade guards, shouting for healers, council members arguing about succession, the high priestess praying to the moon goddess. But none of it mattered. There was only Theron's arms around her, his heartbeat against her ear, his voice through the bond whispering, I love you, I love you, I love you. I love you too, Alara whispered back. Thank you for seeing me. For making me matter. You always mattered. I know that now. Her vision was going dark. She could feel her heart slowing, feel the bond starting to fray at the edges as her consciousness prepared to let go. Through the throne room windows, moonlight streamed in bright and silver and somehow warmer than it should be. The moon goddess, Alara realized dimly. Watching. Waiting. Was this what you wanted? Alara asked the goddess silently. Was this sacrifice the point of the whole prophecy? The moonlight intensified, and Alara heard or thought she heard a voice like silk and starlight. Not sacrifice, child. Transformation. Watch. Then everything went white. Alara woke to pain. Not the all-consuming agony of the arterial wound, but a different pain, the burning, stretching sensation of flesh knitting back together, of magic forcing a mortal injury to heal through divine intervention. She gasped, her eyes flying open. Above her, the throne room ceiling. Around her, dozens of shocked faces. And most importantly, Theron alive, breathing, his silver eyes wide with disbelief as he held her. What? Alara tried to sit up. Her shoulder throbbed, but the bleeding had stopped. When she looked down, she saw silver light sealing the wound, the same light that poured through the windows. Moonlight, divine moonlight, healing moonlight. The high priestess was kneeling beside them, her ancient face streaked with tears. The moon goddess intervened. She whispered, I've never seen in 70 years of service. I've never witnessed direct divine intervention. But she's healing you both, keeping the mate bond intact, saving you. Why? Alara's voice came out hoarse. The prophecy demanded sacrifice. Demanded blood. Why save us? Because you already gave the sacrifice that mattered. The priestess's hand touched Alara's healed shoulder gently. You offered yourself not once but twice, first for a child's life, then for a kingdom's future. You were willing to die both times. The moon goddess doesn't need your death, child. She needed your willingness to die. Your courage. Your selflessness. That was the true sacrifice the prophecy demanded. The words hung in the air like a benediction. Slowly, carefully, Alara sat up fully. Her body ached, exhaustion weighing on every muscle, but she was alive, whole, healed. And Theron was staring at her like she'd risen from the dead, which in a way she had. You're alive, he said unnecessarily. You're actually alive. So are you. I was ready to die with you. I know. Alara's hand found his. But fate had other plans. Apparently we're supposed to stick around and actually rule together instead of just dramatically dying in each other's arms. Despite everything, despite the blood still staining the floor, despite Ren's body being dragged away, despite the chaos and horror of the past hour, Theron laughed. It was a broken, relieved, slightly hysterical sound. But it was real. You're ridiculous, he said, pulling her into a crushing embrace. You crash my moon trial, get yourself marked, nearly die in a combat ring, reveal a massive conspiracy, force a confession through prophecy magic, and then get resurrected by divine intervention. You've been my mate for 3 days, and you've already caused more chaos than most queens manage in a lifetime. Is that a complaint? It's an observation. He pulled back enough to look at her properly. You're the most infuriating, courageous, impossible person I've ever met, and I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. Alara's throat tightened. Even though I'm not perfect? Even though I'm just an orphan who got lucky? You're not lucky, you're prophesied. Theron's smile was soft. And you're not just an orphan, you're Nightshade. You're my queen. You're the woman who stared down a 70-year conspiracy and won through sheer stubborn courage. That's not luck, Alara. That's fate recognizing strength when it sees it. Around them, the throne room was slowly returning to order. Guards were securing the exits. Council members were processing what they'd witnessed, and the high priestess was already beginning the formal prayers that would cleanse the sacred ring of bloodshed. But in the center of it all, Alara and Theron remained two people who'd been strangers 3 days ago, now bonded so deeply that death itself couldn't separate them. What happens now? Alara asked quietly. Now? Theron stood, pulling her up with him. Now we finish what we started. We rescue Lily. We rebuild the council without Ren's corruption. We rule together Prophet Queen and Alpha King, exactly like the prophecy intended. He raised his voice, addressing the entire chamber. Let it be known, Queen Alara Nightshade is recognized as my true mate and co-ruler of these kingdoms. Her word is my word. Her will is my will. Anyone who challenges her answers to me. The remaining council members dropped to one knee. The guards saluted. Even those who'd supported Ren, terrified and uncertain, bowed their heads in acceptance. Alara felt the weight of their recognition settle on her shoulders like a physical thing. 3 days ago she'd been nobody. Now, she was queen. It should have been overwhelming, terrifying. Instead, it felt right. Then let's get started, Alara said, her voice carrying newfound authority. Send word to Cade, tell him his queen commands Lily's safe return. Send healers to the orphanage to treat anyone injured in the attack, and start interviewing everyone who worked with Ren. I want every thread of corruption identified and cut. She looked at Theron. And find Sister Marin. She was Ren's agent in the orphanage for over 20 years. She answers for every cruelty. Every moment, she kept me believing I was worthless. Consider it done. Theron's expression was fierce with approval. Anything else, my queen? Alara thought for a moment, then smiled a real smile, full of the hope she'd never dared feel before. Yes, when Lily is safe, when the immediate crisis is handled, I want to establish a new law, protection for orphans throughout the kingdoms. resources, education, opportunity. No child should grow up the way I did, believing they're nothing because they have no pack. Done. Theron squeezed her hand. We'll make it our first official act as co-rulers. The Nightshade Decree ensuring no orphan is ever invisible again. Through the bond, Alara felt his absolute certainty, his determination to use their power for good, his genuine desire to build something better than what came before. They would make mistakes, she knew. Would face challenges and enemies and complications she couldn't yet see even with her Nightshade sight. But they'd face them together. Prophet Queen and Alpha King, broken orphan and lonely ruler. Two people who'd found each other through prophecy and chose to stay through love. It was enough. It was everything. Chapter 9. The Queen's Justice. Cade returned 3 days later at dawn, riding hard with Lily wrapped in blankets on the horse before him. Alara was in the throne room reviewing council reforms when the doors burst open and the scarred Beta stumbled in, exhausted but triumphant. Lily was pale, thinner than before, dark circles under her eyes but alive, breathing, whole. Your Majesty, Cade said formally, then ruined it by grinning. One rescued orphan, as ordered. Alara's careful queen composure shattered. She was across the room in seconds, pulling Lily from Cade's arms and into her own. The little girl made a small, wounded sound then burst into tears, clinging to Alara like a lifeline. You came, Lily sobbed into Alara's shoulder. They said you'd abandoned me, that you'd chosen being queen over saving me, but I knew you'd come. I would never abandon you. Alara's voice was fierce. She could feel Theron's presence behind her, could sense the entire council watching, but none of it mattered. Only Lily mattered. Never. Do you understand me? You're the reason I'm here. You're the reason I offered myself in the moon trial. Everything I did, everything I became, was to save you. Lily pulled back enough to look at Alara properly. Her young eyes were too old now, carrying knowledge no 7-year-old should have. The men who took me, they said terrible things. About you. About what you'd become. They said you were a monster now, a witch, that you'd forget about me once you had power. Look at me. Alara gently tilted Lily's chin up. Do I look like a monster? Lily studied her face, the silver-threaded eyes, the new confidence, the queen's bearing Alara had developed over the past 3 days. Then, slowly, she smiled. You look like Alara, just more, like you were always supposed to be this, and now you finally are. The simple acceptance made Alara's throat tighten with emotion. I'm still me. Still the woman who washed sheets beside you. Still the one who took Sister Marin's punishment so you wouldn't have to. Being queen doesn't change that. But you are queen now. Lily's voice carried wonder. The servants told me. They said you're Prophet Queen Alara Nightshade, mate to the Alpha King. And you defeated a huge conspiracy and almost died saving everyone. Well, when you put it like that. Alara managed to smile. Yes. I'm queen. Which means I can do things I couldn't do before. Like make sure no one ever hurts you again. Like giving you a real home. The orphanage. No. Alara looked at Theron, who nodded encouragement. The orphanage served its purpose. But you're not going back there. You're staying here. In the palace. With me. Lily's eyes went huge. You mean, like adopted? Exactly like adopted. Alara's decision had been forming for days, solidifying during every moment she'd feared Lily was dead. If you want, if you'll have me as your mother not by blood, but by choice. I can't replace what you lost, Lily. But I can give you a family. A home. A future. The little girl stared at her. Then, very quietly, will Sister Marin let you? Cold fury flashed through Alara. The casual way Lily asked, the automatic assumption that Sister Marin's cruelty was inevitable, unchangeable, spoke volumes about the damage done. Sister Marin, Alara said carefully, doesn't get a say anymore. She's in the palace dungeons awaiting trial for conspiracy. She worked for Councilman Wren for over 20 years, keeping orphans weak and controllable so they could be used as pawns. Everything she did, every punishment, every cruel word was part of his plan. Lily's face went through several expressions, shock, horror, and finally, a cautious hope. So she can't hurt me anymore. Never again, I promise. What about the other orphans? The ones still at Crescent Hollow? The question made Alara's heart clench. She'd been so focused on Lily, on defeating Ren, on surviving, she hadn't thought about the other children left behind at the orphanage. They're being relocated, Theron said, stepping forward. His hand settled on Alara's shoulder, grounding. Your queen's first official decree was establishing new protections for orphans. We're converting an entire wing of the palace into safe housing, education, proper food, caregivers who actually care. Every child from Crescent Hollow is being brought here. No one gets left behind. Lily looked between them, processing. Then her small face crumpled again. But this time with relief, instead of fear. They're really safe? Even the little ones? Even baby Finn, who cries all the time? Especially baby Finn, Alara confirmed. And you're going to help me take care of them, if you want. You know what it's like to be scared and alone in that orphanage. You can help the others adjust to having a real home. Purpose flickered in Lily's eyes, something to hold on to. Something that made the trauma worth surviving. I can do that. I'm good at taking care of the little ones. I know you are. Alara hugged her again, breathing in the scent of the child she'd nearly lost. Through the bond, she felt Theron's approval, his pride in her first decisions as queen. But she also felt his concern. The unspoken question hanging between them. What happens when your nightshade powers fully wake? When prophecy consumes you the way it consumed your ancestors? Because Alara could feel it, the power growing stronger every day. Her visions were becoming clearer, more invasive. Sometimes she'd lose minutes staring at branching futures, unable to distinguish present from possibility. She was becoming more prophet and less person, and neither of them knew how to stop it. Your Majesty. Cade's voice was gentle but formal. There's something else you should know. About the rescue. Alara reluctantly released Lily, letting a palace servant, a kind older woman named Margaret, guide the child away to get cleaned up and fed. Then she turned her full attention to Cade. What happened? Cade's expression darkened. The old fortress was heavily guarded. Ren's loyalists, at least 20 wolves, all willing to die to prevent us from reaching the child. We lost 3 warriors in the assault. 3 dead. 3 families destroyed because Alara had been used as a pawn. Their names, Alara said quietly. I want their names. Their families will be compensated, honored. They died protecting a child. That means something. It does, Your Majesty. Cade's respect was obvious. But there's more. We captured several of Ren's agents alive. During interrogation, they revealed something troubling. Tell me. Ren had a contingency plan. In case he was exposed, in case the conspiracy failed, he arranged for certain information to be released. Secrets about noble families, about past crimes covered up by the council, about deals made during the blood wars that were supposed to stay buried. Cade's jaw tightened. He set up a poison pill. If he dies, which he will, his execution is scheduled for tomorrow. Those secrets automatically get released. It could destabilize the entire kingdom, reignite old conflicts that took decades to settle. Silence fell over the throne room. Theron's hand tightened on Alara's shoulder. Can we stop the release? We're trying. But Ren was thorough. He had multiple dead drop points, multiple agents who don't even know they're working for him. Finding all of them before the execution would take weeks we don't have. This was the problem with destroying corruption, that ran deep, pulling out the roots, always risked bringing down the whole garden. Alara closed her eyes, letting her nightshade sight expand. She could see the futures branching. If they executed Ren tomorrow, secrets released. 3 noble houses exposed. Civil unrest. Small conflicts that could spiral into another war. If they delayed the execution, Ren's remaining supporters rally. Claim the trial was unfair. Build momentum for his release. If they tried to suppress the secrets through force, it only made them more valuable, more dangerous, more likely to surface at the worst possible moment. Every path had consequences. Every choice created new problems. Your Majesty. Cade's voice was concerned. Are you all right? Alara opened her eyes and knew they were glowing pure silver now, the nightshade power fully manifest. Around her, the air itself seemed to shimmer with prophetic energy. I see the futures, she said, her voice carrying those impossible harmonics. I see what happens if we execute him, if we delay, If we try to bury the truth. She focused on Theron. We can't avoid the damage. But we can control how it's released. What do you mean? Ren set up his contingency to cause maximum chaos, releasing everything at once, giving people no context, no framework to understand what they're seeing. That's the real danger. Alara's mind was racing, prophecy and strategy intertwining. But what if we release the secrets ourselves? Before the execution, controlled disclosure with full context and explanation. The council members stirred uneasily. One elderly councilman stood. You're suggesting we voluntarily expose our own corruption? The deals that kept peace during the blood wars? That will destroy trust in the council. Trust is already destroyed, Alara said bluntly. Ren made sure of that. Right now, people don't know who to believe, what's real, what's manipulation. Voluntary disclosure shows we have nothing to hide. Shows we're willing to face our past honestly instead of burying it. The noble families will revolt. The noble families will accept it or face consequences. Theron's voice carried alpha command. My queen is right. Controlled truth is better than chaotic revelation. We release the secrets ourselves, in our own words, with context that makes clear what was necessary during the wars versus what was corruption. We separate survival from conspiracy, but the damage will happen anyway, Alara interrupted. I can see it. Every future where we try to suppress this ends worse than the future where we face it head-on. Yes, some families will be embarrassed. Yes, some historical heroes will lose their shine. But the kingdom survives. Stronger, actually, because we've finally purged all of Ren's poison instead of just the visible parts. She could see the council wavering. Could see some members calculating how this affected their own families, their own hidden shames. I know this is hard, Alara said, her voice gentling. I know facing ugly truths is painful. But I grew up believing I was nothing because people lied to me about who I was. I won't rule a kingdom built on those same lies. If we want to build something better than what Ren corrupted, we have to start with honesty. A long silence. Then the high priestess who'd been standing quietly in the corner spoke. The prophet queen is wise beyond her years. The moon goddess herself saved her for this purpose, to bring truth where lies festered. I support her decision. One by one, the council members nodded acceptance, some grudgingly, some with obvious relief. Then it's decided, Theron announced. We'll spend today compiling all of Ren's hidden information. Tomorrow morning, before the execution, we release it all publicly with full explanation. And anyone who has a problem with how their family is portrayed can take it up with me personally. The threat in his voice was clear. The council dismissed, members scattering to deal with the incoming chaos. When the throne room finally emptied, leaving only Alara, Theron, and Cade, Theron pulled Alara into his arms. You're glowing, he said quietly. Your eyes, your skin. The nightshade power is getting stronger. I know. Alara leaned into him, suddenly exhausted. I can feel it. Every day it's harder to distinguish my thoughts from prophetic visions. I look at people and see not just who they are but who they could be, who they might be. It's overwhelming. We'll find a way to control it. What if we can't? The fear she'd been suppressing finally broke through. What if I become like my ancestors, so consumed by prophecy that I lose myself entirely? What if being queen means losing Alara? Then I'll remind you. Theron's hand cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Every day, every hour if necessary, I'll remind you that you're not just a prophet queen. You're the stubborn orphan who crashed my moon trial covered in blood. You're the woman who offered herself to save a child. You're Lily's mother now, and my mate, and the person who makes terrible jokes when she's nervous. That's who you are. Not just prophecy, not just power, you. The words anchored her. Through the bond, she felt his absolute certainty, his determination to keep her human even as divinity tried to consume her. I love you, Alara whispered. I love you too, he pressed his forehead to hers. And we're going to figure this out. Together. A throat cleared. They'd forgotten Cade was still present. Apologies for interrupting, the beta said, fighting a smile. But there's one more thing. Sister Marin has requested an audience with the queen. Alara went very still. Requested? She's a prisoner. Yes. But she claims to have information about your mother. About the Nightshade bloodline. She says she'll only share it directly with you. It was obviously a trap. An attempt to manipulate, to regain some measure of control through information. But Alara's Nightshade sight showed her something else, a thread of truth in Sister Marin's offer. The nun did know something. Something important. I'll see her, Alara decided. But not alone. Theron comes with me. And Kate have guards posted outside the cell, just in case. Are you sure? Theron's concern flooded the bond. She spent 20 years breaking you down. Facing her now, when you're still adjusting to being queen, I need to face her. Alara straightened her spine, channeling queen instead of frightened orphan. I need to look her in the eye and show her exactly what became of the girl she tried so hard to destroy. Besides, her silver eyes gleamed. If she knows something about my mother, about my bloodline, I need that information. My Nightshade powers are growing unstable. Maybe understanding my heritage will help me control them. It was logical. Strategic. Exactly what a queen should do. But walking toward the dungeons, Alara couldn't quite suppress the tremor in her hands. Because Sister Marin wasn't just Ren's agent. She was the woman who'd raised Alara, who'd shaped her entire childhood, who'd convinced her she was worthless with such thoroughness that even now, even as prophet queen with silver eyes and divine blessing, part of Alara still heard that cruel voice whispering, "You're nothing. You'll always be nothing." Time to prove that voice wrong. One final time. The dungeons beneath the palace were ancient stone and iron, lit by torches that cast dancing shadows on walls covered in centuries of scratched prayers. Sister Marin sat in the largest cell, still wearing her habit though it was stained and torn. She looked smaller than Alara remembered, or perhaps Alara had simply grown larger, filled out with proper food and confidence and power. When the guards opened the cell door, Sister Marin looked up. Her expression was unreadable. So, the nun said quietly, the worthless orphan became a queen. Ren didn't see that coming. He should have. Alara stepped into the cell. There was a solid presence behind her. The prophecy was clear. He just assumed he could control it. Control me. We all made that mistake. Sister Marin's lips twisted into something that might have been a smile on a kinder face, myself included. I thought if I kept you beaten down, kept you believing you were nothing, you'd be safe, controllable, small. Safe from what? From yourself. Sister Marin stood slowly, her aged joints creaking. I need you to understand something, Alara. I didn't start working for Ren willingly. He blackmailed me, threatened people I loved. By the time I realized the extent of his conspiracy, I was already complicit. Already guilty. You still chose to be cruel. Alara's voice was cold. Every slap, every insult, every punishment, those were choices. They were. No denial. No excuses. I told myself it was for your own good. That keeping you broken would keep you alive. That if you never knew what you were, Ren couldn't use you. I was wrong, but I believed it at the time. Why are you telling me this? What information do you have that's worth my attention? Sister Marin reached into her habit, guards tensed, but she only pulled out a folded letter, yellowed with age. This was left with you the night you were abandoned. Tucked in your blankets. Ren took it when he placed you at the orphanage, kept it all these years as insurance. But when he was arrested, the guards found it in his belongings. She held out the letter. It's from your mother. To you. Written minutes before she died. Alara's hand trembled as she took the letter. The paper was old, brittle, stained with what looked like blood. But the handwriting was clear. Elegant. My darling daughter. If you're reading this, I'm dead. Ren found me. I tried to run, tried to give you a chance at life free from prophecy and power, but I failed. You need to know the truth about what you are, what I am, what we all were. The Nightshade bloodline isn't just seers. We're conduits. The moon goddess uses us to shape fate itself, not just to predict it, but to actively write it. That's why we were hunted. Why Ren wants you dead, or controlled. Because a fully awakened Nightshade doesn't just see the future. She creates it, but that power comes with a price. The more you use it, the less human you become. Your ancestors, my mother, her mother before her, they all lost themselves eventually. became pure prophecy with no person left inside. They could see every possible future but couldn't choose which one to live in. They were trapped in infinite possibility. I sealed your power to save you from that fate. But I know the seal won't hold forever. When it breaks, when your nightshade gift fully wakes, you'll face the same choice every prophet before you faced. Embrace the power completely and lose yourself, or resist it and stay human but limited. There's a third option though, one no nightshade has achieved in 300 years. Balance. If you can find someone to anchor you, someone whose presence keeps you grounded in the present instead of lost in futures, you might manage both. Power and humanity. Prophet and person. I thought I'd found that anchor. Your father loved me, grounded me, kept me sane. But he died in the early days of the blood wars, and without him, I started slipping, started seeing too much, feeling too little. That's when I knew I had to hide you. Had to give you a chance to find your own anchor before the power consumed you. If you're reading this, you've survived. You've probably already been marked by someone, bonded to someone. The prophecy would ensure that. Hold on to them, darling. Let them keep you human. Let them remind you that you're more than just visions and fate writing. And please, please use the power wisely. The nightshades have shaped kingdoms, ended wars, created dynasties, but we've also caused terrible suffering when we chose wrong futures, when we played goddess instead of prophet. You're strong though. Stronger than I ever was. I can see that much, even now. Be brave, my daughter. Be kind. And never forget that prophecy is a tool, not a destiny. Love always, your mother, Lyra Nightshade. Alara's vision blurred with tears. She read the letter twice, 3 times, absorbing every word. Her mother hadn't abandoned her, had loved her, had died trying to give her a chance at life. And the warning about losing herself to prophecy, about needing an anchor, it was already happening. Alara could feel herself slipping, could feel the visions getting stronger while her sense of self grew weaker. She was right, Alara whispered. About all of it. The power is consuming me. Then you know what you need to do. Sister Marin's voice was surprisingly gentle. The mate bond with the Alpha King, that's your anchor. Hold on to it. Let him keep you grounded. Don't make your mother's mistake of trying to bear the burden alone. Alara looked up, meeting the nun's eyes. Why tell me this? Why help me now? Because I owe you. Sister Marin's expression carried genuine regret. I spent 20 years trying to break you. The least I can do is give you the tools to survive what's coming. Consider it my confession, my attempt at redemption, though I know it's not enough. It's not, Alara agreed. You'll still face trial. Still be punished for working with Ren. I know. I accept that. Sister Marin looked at Theron. Take care of her, Alpha King. She's stronger than she realizes, but that power will destroy her if she faces it alone. Be her anchor. Keep her human. I intend to, Theron said quietly. Sister Marin nodded. Then she sat back down on the cell's narrow bench, looking oddly peaceful for someone awaiting trial. Alara and Theron left the cell, the letter clutched tight in Alara's hand. Outside, in the corridor, Alara finally let herself break. Tears streamed down her face for the mother she'd never known, for the childhood stolen by conspiracy, for the impossible burden of power that threatened to erase who she was. Theron held her through it, his arms steady, his presence absolutely solid. I've got you, he murmured. You're not alone. You'll never be alone again. And through the bond, Alara felt his certainty, his love, his determination to be exactly what her mother described, the anchor that kept her human even as prophecy tried to consume her. It wouldn't be easy. The visions were already intensifying, the power growing harder to control. But maybe, just maybe, with Theron beside her, she could achieve what no nightshade had managed in 300 years. Balance, power, and humanity, prophet queen and person both. She held on to that hope as they climbed back toward the throne room, toward the responsibilities waiting. Tomorrow, they'd execute Ren and release his secrets. Tomorrow, they'd begin rebuilding a kingdom poisoned by 20 years of corruption. Tomorrow, Alara would face her first real test as queen. But tonight she had her mate, her adopted daughter, and a letter from a mother who'd loved her enough to hide her from destiny. It was enough. For now, it was enough. Chapter 10. The prophet's crown. Dawn broke blood-red over the palace courtyard. Alara stood on the royal balcony beside Theron, watching as thousands of wolves gathered below for the execution. The entire kingdom had turned out nobles in their finest clothes, common wolves from every territory, even delegations from neighboring kingdoms who'd heard about the conspiracy's exposure. In the center of the courtyard, on a raised platform, stood Councilman Wren, bound in silver chains. Waiting. "You don't have to watch this," Theron said quietly, his hand finding hers. "Yes, I do." Alara's silver eyes were steady despite the nausea churning in her stomach. "He murdered my mother, poisoned children, corrupted kingdoms. I owe it to everyone he hurt to witness his end." Through the crowd, Alara could see Lily standing with Margaret, the kind servant who'd been helping her adjust to palace life. The little girl's face was solemn, too understanding for her age. She'd insisted on attending, said she needed to see that monsters could actually be defeated. The high priestess stepped onto the platform, her white robes stark against the dark wood. In her hands, she carried a ceremonial blade ancient, inscribed with runes that glowed faintly in the dawn light. "Councilman Wren Ashford," the priestess announced, her voice magically amplified to reach the entire crowd. "You stand convicted of regicide, conspiracy against the throne, murder of bloodlines, and crimes spanning 2 decades. You confess these crimes under trial by truth, witnessed by the High Council and the Moon Goddess herself. The sentence is death. Do you have final words?" Wren lifted his head. Even now chained, defeated, minutes from death, his amber eyes burned with intelligence and unrepentant malice. "Only this," he said, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "You think you've won. You think exposing my conspiracy, killing me, releasing those secrets will purge the corruption I built, but you're wrong." He looked directly at Alara on the balcony. "The seeds I planted run deeper than you know, Prophet Queen. My agents, my plans, my poison, they're woven into this kingdom's foundations. You can kill me, but you can't kill what I've created. And when it all comes crashing down, when the secrets I released tear your precious kingdom apart, you'll wish you'd died in that throne room instead of being resurrected to witness the destruction." Silence fell over the crowd. Murmurs of unease rippled through the gathered wolves. Alara felt Theron tense beside her, felt his instinct to respond, to defend. But she raised her hand, stopping him, because her nightshade sight was showing her something, a vision crystallizing with perfect clarity. Wren was telling the truth. He did have deeper plans. Agents positioned throughout the kingdom, who didn't even know they were working for him. Seeds of destruction that would germinate over the coming months and years. But those plans only worked if people believed they were inevitable. If fear and doubt took root. If the kingdom fractured under the weight of revealed secrets. There was another future, though. A brighter thread where Wren's final poison failed. Where instead of tearing them apart, the revealed truths brought the kingdom together. Where transparency replaced corruption, and people chose unity over division. That future required one thing: hope. The kind of hope that only a prophet queen could provide. Alara stepped forward to the balcony's edge. When she spoke, her voice carried that layered quality, not just her words, but the voice of prophecy itself. "You're right, Wren. Your poison runs deep. The secrets you've released will cause pain. Will expose ugly truths. Will challenge everything people thought they knew about their leaders and their history." The crowd shifted uneasily. This wasn't the reassuring speech they'd expected. "But you made one critical mistake," Alara continued, her silver eyes blazing in the dawnlight. "You assumed fear and corruption were the strongest forces in this kingdom. You assumed that when faced with uncomfortable truths, people would fracture and turn on each other." She raised her voice, letting it carry to every corner of the courtyard. "You were wrong. Because I am Nightshade. I can see the futures that branch from this moment. And I've seen what this kingdom becomes when we choose honesty over comfortable lies. When we choose to face our past instead of burying it. When we choose unity over division." The crowd was utterly silent now, every eye fixed on their glowing prophet queen. "Yes, the secrets you've released will hurt. Yes, we'll discover that some of our heroes weren't as heroic as we believed. Yes, deals were made during the blood wars that compromised our ideals in order to achieve peace." Alara's expression was fierce. "But we're strong enough to bear those truths. We're brave enough to learn from them. And we're wise enough to build something better on the foundation of honesty, rather than the sand of deception. She looked down at Ren directly. So thank you, Councilman. Thank you for forcing us to face ourselves. Thank you for exposing every crack and flaw in our system. Because now we know exactly what needs to be rebuilt. And we'll do it right this time with transparency, with justice, with the understanding that true strength comes from facing uncomfortable truths, not hiding from them. Alara's voice softened, became almost gentle. You thought you'd destroy us with revelation. Instead, you've given us the opportunity to become what we always should have been. A kingdom built on truth instead of lies. On justice instead of corruption. On hope instead of fear. She stepped back from the balcony edge. Proceed with the execution, High Priestess. And let Councilman Ren die knowing that his final poison failed. That we chose light over darkness. That we proved him wrong. The High Priestess raised the ceremonial blade. Ren opened his mouth, perhaps to scream a final curse, perhaps to beg for mercy. But before he could speak, before the blade could fall, something happened that no one expected. Ren's body went rigid. His amber eyes rolled back, foam flecking his lips. He convulsed once, twice, then collapsed, the silver chains rattling as he fell. The High Priestess knelt beside him, checking for breath. After a long moment, she looked up at the royal balcony, her face grave. He's dead, Your Majesties. Not from execution, from poison. Fast-acting. Self-administered. He must have had it hidden in a false tooth, or concealed somewhere on his body. Chaos erupted in the courtyard. Guards rushed the platform. Council members shouted questions. The crowd surged with confusion and panic. Alara's nightshade sight exploded with visions, futures branching wildly, as this unexpected death created new possibilities. Ren's suicide would be seen as admission of guilt, proof that his conspiracy ran so deep even he couldn't face its full exposure. Or it would be seen as martyrdom, proof that the Prophet Queen and Alpha King were so tyrannical that death was preferable to facing their justice. Or it would spark conspiracy theories, claims that he was assassinated, silenced before he could reveal even darker secrets. Every branch showed potential disaster unless silence. Theron's alpha command cut through the chaos like a blade. The crowd immediately stilled, instinct compelling obedience. Alara gripped the balcony railing, her eyes distant as she watched futures collapse and reform. She needed to guide this moment carefully, needed to choose words that would steer the kingdom toward the bright thread instead of the dark ones. Councilman Ren chose to die on his own terms, Alara said clearly. He couldn't face the justice he'd evaded for 20 years. Couldn't bear to see the kingdom he tried to corrupt become stronger despite his efforts. His suicide isn't escape. It's admission of guilt so profound that even death seemed preferable to accountability. She let that sink in, watching the crowd's reaction through both normal sight and prophetic vision. But his death changes nothing about our path forward, she continued. The secrets are still released. The truths still need to be faced. The reforms still need to be made. If anything, his suicide proves that transparency is exactly what we need, because corruption can't survive in the light. It withers, dies, poisons itself. Through the bond, Alara felt Theron's pride, his support, his absolute trust in her leadership. Today was supposed to be an execution, Alara said. Instead, it becomes something else, a turning point. The day we chose as a kingdom to stop hiding from uncomfortable truths, the day we decided to build something better than what Ren corrupted. She raised her voice, letting prophecy flow through it, not forcing a specific future, but illuminating the path toward the brightest one. I've seen what we can become. I've seen the futures that branch from this moment. And I'm telling you now, we have the strength to choose the good path. To choose unity over division. To choose growth over fear. We just have to be brave enough to walk it together. The crowd was silent for a long moment. Then slowly, from somewhere in the back, someone started clapping. Another joined, then another. Within seconds, the entire courtyard erupted in applause and cheers. They believed her, believed in her vision, believed that despite Ren's final poison, despite the uncomfortable truths waiting, they could build something better. The bright thread strengthened, solidified, Alara watched it through her nightshade sight, saw the future where this moment became legend. Where the Prophet Queen's first real test was the day she turned an execution into a promise of hope. She'd done it. Guided fate without forcing it. Used her power to illuminate possibility without erasing choice. Balance. Just like her mother had described. Theron's arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. Through the bond, his emotions flooded warm and fierce. I love you. I'm so proud of you. You're going to be an amazing queen. We're going to be amazing rulers. Alara corrected through the bond. Together, the next weeks passed in a blur of activity. True to their promise, Alara and Theron released all of Ren's hidden secrets with full context and explanation. Some revelations were painful deals made during the Blood Wars that compromised ideals for survival, noble families with darker histories than they'd admitted, even some of the council members who'd made morally questionable choices. But presented honestly, with acknowledgement of the difficult circumstances and genuine commitment to doing better, most of the kingdom accepted it. There were isolated protests, a few noble families who lost status, some calls for additional accountability. But the feared civil unrest never materialized. Instead, something unexpected happened. People started volunteering their own uncomfortable truths, admitting past mistakes, asking for forgiveness and offering to make amends. Transparency became contagious. The Nightshade Decree, Alara's law protecting orphans, passed unanimously. An entire wing of the palace was converted into housing for children without families, complete with education, proper food, and caregivers carefully vetted to ensure no more Sister Marins could slip through. Lily thrived in her new role as helper and older sister to the younger orphans. She was still healing from her kidnapping, still had nightmares sometimes, but she was safe, loved, given the childhood she'd always deserved. And Alara was learning to be both Prophet Queen and person. It wasn't easy. The visions still threatened to overwhelm her sometimes. She'd lose hours staring at branching futures, paralyzed by infinite possibility. Her eyes glowed silver more often than not, and there were moments when she looked at Theron and saw not her mate but a collection of possible futures, the paths he might walk, the choices he might make, the deaths he might die. But he always brought her back. Alara, he'd say, his hands cupping her face. Come back to me. Not the futures, not the prophecies, just now, just us. And slowly she'd return. The silver would fade from her eyes, the visions would recede. She'd see Theron again, not fate's puppet, but the man who'd claimed her in a moon trial and refused to let prophecy erase who she actually was. The bond was her anchor. Just like her mother had written. Just like the prophecy had intended all along. 6 weeks after Ren's death, Alara stood in the throne room conducting morning audiences when her nightshade sight suddenly flared with warning. A vision slammed into her consciousness with overwhelming force. Assassination attempt. 3 weeks from now. During the spring festival, a hidden agent of Ren's, one they hadn't found, hadn't even suspected, would strike at Theron during the public celebration. The blade would be poisoned. Widow's kiss. Theron would die before anyone could heal him. Unless Alara changed one small thing 3 weeks before. Unless she assigned different guards to the festival perimeter. Unless she made sure Cade was positioned exactly right to intercept the attack. The future was changeable. But only if she acted now. Alara gasped, stumbling. Theron was beside her instantly, his arm around her waist. What did you see? His voice was urgent, concerned. Around them, the petitioners in the throne room waited nervously. They'd grown accustomed to their Prophet Queen's visions, but it still unsettled them when she went distant and glowing. Alara steadied herself, grounding in Theron's presence. The vision faded slightly, becoming manageable instead of overwhelming. Assassination attempt, she said quietly, pitching her voice for his ears only. 3 weeks, spring festival. I saw how to stop it. Then we will. Simple. Absolute. No panic, no doubt, just complete trust in her gift. But Theron? Alara's voice trembled slightly. If I change things to stop this assassination, I can see the ripples. Other futures shift. There's a merchant in the Eastern Territories who'll die in a fire that wouldn't have happened if I don't change the guard schedule. A child in the northern villages who'll be born if I do make the change, but won't exist otherwise. Every choice I make creates and destroys futures. This was the burden her mother had warned about. The weight of knowing that every decision as Prophet Queen didn't just affect the present, it reshaped destinies. Created some lives while erasing others from possibility. How did you choose? How did you decide which futures deserve to exist and which should be prevented? You can't save everyone, Theron said gently. No ruler can, prophet or not. All you can do is make the best choices with the information you have. But I have too much information. I can see all the consequences, all the ripples. Normal rulers get to make decisions without knowing every life they're affecting. I don't have that luxury. Then we'll bear it together. Theron's hands framed her face, forcing her to focus on him. You see the futures. I'll help you choose which ones to pursue. We'll share the weight of these decisions. That's what mates do. That's what anchors are for. Through the bond, Alara felt his certainty, his willingness to carry half this impossible burden. She took a shaky breath. The guard schedule changes. That's what prevents your death. And the merchant's fire, I can send a warning. Maybe he listens, maybe he doesn't. But at least I tried. Then that's what we'll do. Theron pressed his forehead to hers. One decision at a time. One life at a time. We can't save everyone, but we can save the ones we can reach. It wasn't perfect. Wasn't the omniscient control that prophecy seemed to promise. But it was human. Manageable. A way to wield power without letting it consume her. Alara nodded, straightening. The silver faded from her eyes as she deliberately pulled herself out of the prophetic vision and back into the present moment. Apologies, she said to the waiting petitioners. A brief vision. Nothing that affects today's business. Please, continue with your petition. The audience resumed. Alara handled each case with focused attention. No visions. No prophecies. Just present judgment applied to present problems. And beside her, Theron ruled as Alpha King strong. Just. Fierce when needed but fair always. Together, they were building something. Not the kingdom Ren had corrupted. Not even the kingdom that had existed before his conspiracy. Something new. Something better. A kingdom where orphans had protection. Where uncomfortable truths were faced instead of buried. Where a prophet queen could use her power without losing herself. Where an alpha king had a mate who challenged him to be better instead of simply obeying. It was messy. Imperfect. Still healing from decades of corruption. But it was theirs. Honestly, completely theirs. 3 months after Ren's death, on a warm spring evening, Alara stood on the palace balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Lily was safely tucked into bed after a day spent helping with the younger orphans. The council had finally approved the last of the transparency reforms, and Taryn was inside finishing paperwork, boring administrative work that came with ruling, but necessary. Alara let her nightshade sight expand gently, carefully. Not seeking specific visions. Just observing. Watching the threads of fate weave and branch. And reform. The kingdom's future looked brighter than it had in decades. Not perfect, there would always be challenges, conflicts, problems to solve. But the foundations were solid now, built on honesty instead of lies, and her own future. Alara saw threads of possibility stretching ahead. Years of ruling beside Theron. Children. Eventually the prophecy was unclear on timing, but she could see moments of holding an infant with silver-threaded eyes. Of Lily playing with younger siblings. Of a family built not from blood but from choice. She saw challenges too. Moments when her nightshade power would threaten to overwhelm her again. Times when ruling would feel impossible. Days when the weight of prophecy would make her want to scream. But in every bright thread, every future where she stayed sane and human in herself, Theron was there. Her anchor, her mate. The man who'd claimed an orphan in a moon trial and refused to let fate erase who she was. Brooding or prophesying. Alara smiled as Theron's arms wrapped around her from behind. She leaned into his warmth, deliberately pulling herself fully into the present. Neither, just appreciating. She turned in his arms to face him properly. We did it. We actually survived all of this. The conspiracy, the prophecy, the transformation, we made it through. We did. Theron's smile was soft. Though I seem to remember you were the one who did most of the surviving. I just held on and tried not to get in the way. Liar. Alara's hand came up to cup his face. You kept me human. Kept me grounded. I'd be lost in visions right now if not for you. Then we're even. Because I'd be a lonely, paranoid king without you. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the last of the sunset fade into twilight. The moon was rising full and bright, casting silver light that made Alara's eyes gleam. Do you ever regret it? Theron asked quietly. Offering yourself that day? If you'd known what it would cost, what you'd become, would you still have entered that moon trial? Alara thought about it seriously, considered the girl she'd been invisible, powerless, convinced she was worthless. Considered everything that had happened since, the bond, the revelation of her heritage, the weight of prophecy, the burden of being queen. If she could go back, knowing everything, would she make the same choice? Yes, she said finally. Because Lily is alive. Because Ren's conspiracy was exposed. Because this kingdom has a chance to be better. And because, she met Theron's eyes. Because I found you. Found myself. Found purpose. I may not have asked for any of this, but I wouldn't trade it. Even the prophecy? Even the visions that threatened to consume you? Even those? Alara's voice was steady. My mother wrote that prophecy is a tool, not a destiny. I'm learning to use it as a tool carefully, with help, never alone. And as long as I have you to anchor me, I think I can bear it. Always. Theron's promise was absolute. For as long as fate allows and beyond if I can manage it. They kissed then, not the desperate claiming of new mates, but something deeper. A reaffirmation of choice. Two people who'd been thrown together by prophecy but who chose to stay together through love. When they finally pulled apart, Alara's eyes were glowing silver again. But this time, it wasn't overwhelming. Just present. Part of who she was. I see our future, she said softly. Want to know what I see? Tell me. Challenges. Definitely challenges. More conspiracies to uncover, more reforms to fight for, more moments when ruling feels impossible. Her smile widened. But I also see joy. Lily growing strong and confident. The orphans we've saved, building good lives, this kingdom slowly healing. And us, her hand found his heart, feeling it beat steady and strong. Us growing old together, still annoying each other, still choosing each other every day. That's a future I can live with, Theron said. Good, because it's the one I'm choosing. Alara's voice carried that layered quality, briefly, not forcing fate, just illuminating it. Every day, every decision, I choose the path that keeps us together. That keeps me human. That makes this kingdom better. That's my prophecy now. Not what was written 50 years ago, but what I'm writing with every choice. Then I'll choose the same path. Theron pulled her close. Prophet Queen and Alpha King. Orphan and lonely ruler. Two broken people who fit together into something whole. Something better than whole, Alara corrected. Something real. From inside the palace, they heard Lily calling, probably had a nightmare again, needing reassurance that her new mother wasn't going anywhere. Alara smiled. Duty calls. It always does. But Theron didn't let go immediately. Before we go back to being rulers and parents and all the things we're supposed to be, I need you to know something. What? The moon trial. That day you crashed into my life covered in blood, demanding medicine for a dying child. That was the best day of my life. Everything since has been complicated and difficult and sometimes terrifying. But I've never regretted that you chose to enter that circle. Never regretted marking you. Never regretted any of it. Alara's throat tightened with emotion. Even when I'm glowing silver and lost in visions? Especially then, because you always come back to me. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. You're the strongest person I've ever known, and I'm honored, genuinely honored to be your mate. I love you, Alara whispered. So much. I love you too. Now and in every future I hope we build together. They kissed again, sealing the promise. Then, hand in hand, they went inside to comfort a frightened child, to finish administrative paperwork, to handle the 1,000 small tasks that came with ruling. Not Prophet Queen and Alpha King anymore. Just Alara and Theron. Two people choosing to build a life together, one decision at a time. And if Alara's silver eyes sometimes saw the futures branching ahead, the challenges waiting, the joys to come, the long road they'd walk together, she didn't let those visions overwhelm her. Because she'd learned the most important lesson prophecy had to teach. The future wasn't written in stone. It was written in choices. And every day, Alara chose love over loneliness, connection over isolation, hope over despair, humanity over power. She chose to be both prophet queen and person. She chose Lily as her daughter, Theron as her mate, this kingdom as her responsibility. She chose to matter, not because prophecy said she would, but because she decided she deserved to. The orphan who'd offered herself to save a child had become a queen who'd save a kingdom. And every day, she chose to become her again. To remember where she'd come from, and never forget the invisible, powerless girl who'd been brave enough to crash a moon trial and demand to be seen. That girl lived on in every decision Alara made as queen. In every orphan she protected. In every uncomfortable truth she chose to face. She was Alara. Not just Nightshade bloodline. Not just prophet queen. Not just Alpha King's mate. She was herself. Honestly, completely, courageously herself. And that more than any prophecy, any power, any divine blessing was enough. For 23 years, Alara was invisible not because she lacked worth, but because those in power needed her to stay small. The prophecy said she would be queen, but she became one by choosing love over fear, truth over comfort, and connection over power. How many people in your life are being kept invisible? And your life may not be prophesied, but what are you choosing to become with the decisions you make today? Who are you choosing to see, and who are you choosing to be? Let me know your thought in the comments.